Okay, let us get this show on the road, as all the hip and happening people say. Hello, and welcome back to some more Headers Code. Now, as if you watched the last episode, you will remember I got a bit stuck. I was making things way more complicated than they needed to be. So we got to this church, and we saw this riddle, and I believe it ended up. I was trying to do something like 10 things long because I was reading the entire thing, thinking the entire thing must be the code. No, it turns out it's 4 long, and it's something like, I think it was diamonds, hearts, clubs. And as soon as I did that, this opened up. So there is now something apparently behind the altar, which is terribly exciting. So let's find out what's here. I walked behind the altar after it opened in the back. There was a lot of machinery underneath. Some gears were spinning in empty space. Gears had been closer, they would form an uninterrupted chain. Yet I didn't see how I could have moved them. The socket below was clearly indicating I needed a lever of some sort. Maybe I could go and ask E for some wisdom about this. I conferred with E over the mechanism in the back of the altar. You say there are gears, correct? Let me take a feel so I know what it is. I hastily added that some of the cogs were moving and it might be dangerous. Her hand could get stuck there. That's a shame. But what about the rest? Are they immobile? I confirmed that fact. This was quickly shredding through my stash of paper. While E was debating over what to do, I thought it strange this room didn't have a spare lever somewhere to push into the socket. You'd think this place wouldn't make a puzzle like that impossible. I vaguely remember there being something else in here that I spotted last time and was like, what's that? But I thought it was somewhere over here, but maybe I'm misremembering. What do the cogs look like first? I couldn't draw a picture since she didn't see. See, I assume. So I described them instead. The various gears were metallic and held with large axles. The one gear that could move seemed to have some sort of empty socket in the middle. There were other pieces of machinery underneath, but none of them looked like they could move. An empty socket, you say? Maybe we can stick something there and use it to move the gear. There's a hole in the end of the axle like that. Show us a picture! Please? We're not blind. Hey, this is really hard to envisage. Maybe we can do that and the lever as a red herring. Instead, then, what I'm looking for is a smaller stick. I had to look around every nook and cranny again to find that little metal stick. I glanced up the pillar on this side. Over the arch was something I recognised from the security feed. It was a stick hooked over the arch. Well, that's the lever I'm looking for. Sadly, I will never reach it, and I don't think I can make it fall down, so where's the axle I need to find? I glanced into the large pot of incense on the altar. If this thing was burned, this place would become spiritually charged. I don't have anything to burn it with, though. I absent-mindedly dragged a finger into the incense. Wait, hold on, what's this? I dug into it. After taking out a handful, I saw something shiny stick out of the pot. I turned it over and dropped its contents onto the ground in a big mess. This is a metallic stick. It's just what I was looking for. Who knew that to find it, I had to make the incense become outcense? So there are bad puns, and then there's that. There is an art to making bad puns. That's not even a pun, that's just bad wordplay. I don't know. Oh dear, oh dear. Following E's advice, I tried manually moving the cogs. There's no way this is going to work. I worked with the axle. The cogs connected, and careful not to get my hand stuck in there, I removed myself from the premises. A panel opened on the side of the altar in the back. It had been so silent, if I hadn't moved closer beforehand, I wouldn't have noticed it. The mechanism of this place is well maintained. In the panel there was yet another piece of technology, a small terminal of sorts. On the display was a bunch of numbers, 8, 6, 2, 4, 1, 3, 7 and 5. I guess this is our code to escape. I walked back down the stairs to the benches, deciding to fetch E. Before we left though, I remembered I wanted to investigate the possible link everyone shared. I needed to ask her some things to be certain of my hunch. I wrote my questions on a sheet of paper. What do I do? Prior to my recent loss of vision and hearing, I studied at the University of Montreal. I was surprised by that. Once again I found something adding to the theory involving the university. Marco, Ray, her and I all shared that school. Not just any university. That one in particular. My disabilities were a recent development. Before that I was a student in the field of applied pneumatics. It's a very secretive field researching, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's about what thought is and what constitutes thought. I took extended courses in personality studies and neurology as well. It's all very complex. Anyway, that's what I did before my incident, though I never really got to do much on the applied side of that field. It was mostly theory. Even at university, you had to take unrelated courses to fill up your curriculum. I assumed her inability to do the practical parts stemmed from this dumb practice. Then again... Oh, I see what they mean. Then again, I didn't take her for someone who'd want to mess with thoughts and what thoughts were. I took a brief moment to think about what Marco studied in. It was also a scientific field, but I just couldn't remember what it was. It too was something strange like that. A sudden flash of inspiration hit me. That's right. A was a researcher too. The old man shared a tangential link to those two. He was a researcher, which sounds scientific, and there was E and Marco both studying in that stuff. There were. Plural. All of this left me without a link for Jasmine and the twins. Perhaps I was the link between Jasmine and science, so it went something like Marco, A, and E were related to science in some way. Marco, E, Ray, and I were related by the fact we belonged to the university. Jasmine and I were related because we knew each other. That left the twins. I only needed to ask the twins if they shared any sort of link with Jasmine. That would have to wait until we were all in the same place, so the lounge was my next destination. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna reset my face. That is an expression. There we go. Slightly less weirdly placed now. There we go. Move my neck. That's better. For now, I took E's hand to pull her into the lobby. We're done here? Amazing. It was remarkably fast, S. Be able to finish so quickly. I'd like to think I'd need quite a while before I finish, but anyway. Oh dear. I was thankful she couldn't hear me. We can, though. We can. We have to suffer. Why are we here? If only to suffer. I was thankful she couldn't hear me as we took the train back to our hangout spot. The trip back to the lounge was remarkably quiet, even if I could hardly contain my excitement. Agnos would have no choice but to let me know everything once I shared my discovery with him. Would he? I stepped out of the train with E, confident this would be our way out. Unfortunately, the noise I just heard robbed me of all my optimism. A sense of dread slowly spread throughout my body. Was that a gunshot? It was a glacial feeling. The question wasn't if it was a gunshot or not. The question was who shot and who got shot. In my usual way, I started imagining the worst. I imagined Marco lying on the ground, bleeding to death. I imagined Jasmine against a wall, immobile and dying. What if Knox got shot? All possibilities of learning the truth about him would evaporate. I clenched my teeth. It was too early to say. Instead, I yanked E to the metallic wall. I was hearing some footsteps from above. What is it? She asked. She spoke. He made noise. I had to stop that, so I put my hand over her mouth. The girl understood quickly and ceased any sort of movement. The train betrayed me when a little chime rang out and it drove away. Whoever was upstairs would know that there was someone downstairs now. I suppose. They would know there was the potential. The footsteps stopped. Instead, there was silence. Other than some grumbling or moaning. Another gunshot followed. The person hadn't been on their way to leave the room yet. Perhaps they didn't realise someone came by the station. The elephant of surprise may have still been on my side. Finally, those heavy steps came closer and closer. The staircase creaked as the steps grew louder. Lucky they're coming down the right way. The footwear was probably a pair of boots. What a bother, and what a mess. Unavoidable, but unfortunate. I recognised that voice and those boots. They both belonged to Agnos. That sense of dread from earlier grew tenfold. If he was the one with the gun, then that meant the others. I couldn't panic here. If he found me here, he might not like me learning he'd shot in cold blood. I held my breath and counted the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, I sensed him in the lobby. Even a rat caught in a corner would strike back if it had no choice. I was the rat, and he was cornering me, as the train was no longer here to flee the scene. As soon as I saw him step through the door frame, I let go of E and grabbed his wrist. Right afterwards, I slammed his arm against the wall, twisting it upwards while he gave a moan of pain. The best sounds. What are you doing, you idiot? Either I got lucky, or he wasn't as strong as I thought he was. Perhaps it was merely our age difference at play. Sadly, my luck wouldn't hold out. While he dropped the gun to the ground, he did something else too. He punched me in the face. I lost my balance and the world spun around me as I fell to the ground, pulling him down alongside me. However, with surprising agility, he stood back up to his feet and dusted himself off. Are you afraid due to the gun? I'm simply ensuring that whoever is behind this game is removed from it. As there was no conclusive evidence, I'm removing everyone who isn't me. That is some sound logic right there. I wasn't a very good fighter, but he was still an old man, so I took my chance. I lunged at his legs and quickly got him down to the ground again. This time he was dazed by the hit, so I reached over and grabbed the revolver. I wasn't used to firearms, so I couldn't do anything substantial with this right now, but I could keep it out of his grasp. While he rubbed his side and took longer to get back up, I grabbed E's hand and pulled her into the lobby. It didn't take long for both of us to make it up the stairs. I couldn't explain to her what was happening. I had no time for any of this. All I knew is that I needed to clear our names of this business. Once Agnos would realise that we weren't Smiley or his accomplice, then he would have no reason to pursue us. I had momentarily forgotten what would be upstairs. I glanced into the lounge, which was perhaps a grave mistake. The grim sight greeting me was nauseating. There were spots of blood everywhere. Many bodies. Not just one, but 2, 3, no, there were 4. All of them had been shot square in the head. With 4 deaths, I assumed the revolver had used 4 of its 6 shots. The 4 dead were Ray, one of the twins, and I fell to my knees suddenly dizzy. The other 2 were Jasmine and Marco. They were both dead. They were lying there, dead as shit. Dead. Both of them. I've never talked to Jasmine again. Never hear another one of Marco's stupid jokes. I hated those jokes, but this I hated more. I hated it far more. I couldn't move. I felt like solid rock. He was still standing next to me. He didn't know what to do. Clearly the girl was scared, but I couldn't move. I was stuck in a strange state, like solid rock. Cold, weathered by time, full of heavy nothing. Mechanically I turned my head towards E. He was still alive though. Girl, this nice girl who didn't deserve any of this, was still alive. Slowly I stood back up. This girl who had been nothing but nice to me, she was like a goddess coming down from above. Despite doing nothing, her mere presence brought me back to reality. That's right. He was still alive, and so was I. I took a long breath after having forgotten to do so for a short eternity. I wanted to mourn my friends, but the bodies end here. No more. I clenched my teeth again. I could have made the cowardly choice of lying down on the ground and accompanying my friends far, far away. I could have, but I was resolute now. The first time I decided that enough was enough. I wouldn't let Agnes kill more people. I grabbed E's hand. I couldn't bring her to danger again, but leaving her in a room full of dead bodies was not my idea of a good date either. She was safer with me. The girl was the most precious person as a fellow survivor. We went back down the stairs. I had to deal with Agnes. I looked around the station once I was in the lobby. He was nowhere to be found. I hadn't heard footsteps, so he didn't go to the other side. Where was he? I stepped into the station. He wasn't on the other side, nor was he on the rails. He wasn't waiting for me. I only noticed where he was as a small clank echoed from afar. The station had two ends, leading to a dark maintenance tunnel. The gates were locked, preventing our access to them. However, the old man disappeared inside one of those tunnels, and he didn't come out. Damn it. In the darkness, he would have the advantage. I couldn't afford that. I cursed and went back into the lobby. This no longer was a viable option to pursue for the time being. Instead, I went over to the other side. I decided to take the train and put some distance between Agnos and us. Just as quickly as before, I made my way out of the lobby. I couldn't see if Agnos was capable of seeing me on this side. Just in case, if he could, I flipped the bird in his direction. Just make sure all your bases are covered, you know? That'd teach him. The train was coming. It was remarkably fast, confirming the thought I had earlier. This train was the only train here, wasn't it? It didn't have to take anybody else at the moment, so it could pick me up quickly. I looked around the station for any signs of something capable of picking up our presence, but I didn't see anything. Once again, pulling E by the hand, I stepped into the train with her. Once she sat down, I started writing. What is happening? Please let me know. I was getting to it, but it would take a while. As I wrote, the chime rang out. As I wrote, the train drove off. Everyone is dead? How could this happen? I suppose I don't have a reason not to follow you everywhere now, but are you sure? Is it really what you saw? The girl looked positively mortified. I couldn't blame her. I elaborated upon the fact I only saw one twin, so perhaps the other was safe. You know which one died? I was told they were identical, so perhaps not. Oh no, I didn't think all of this would get so bloody. This is truly, terribly horrible. While I'd been writing, I mounted up another part of my plan. Mounted up? The station I would go to was the fourth from the lounge, the one I forgot to explore earlier with E. That station would hopefully give me some answers. We need to find a way to leave this hell as fast as possible. She was right, this was hell. I couldn't stop thinking about the bodies, dead, cold on the floor, which was equally as cold. I had to stop thinking about it. That was then, this was now. The train stopped. I couldn't let anything destroy my resolve. I only had one chance at this. If I died, it would be all over, and E would be dead as well. Speaking of E, I had to ask her what her name was. I decided to keep this as an incentive to escape. I would only do it once I would be safe and sound outside. The train left behind me after I contemplated that idea. First order of business was clearing up my name, finding out what that fucking password, and tracking A once I'd amassed all the shitty information he wanted me to find. I held my head in my hand. I started swearing in my thoughts. I needed to calm down. Pulling E along again, I stepped into the lobby. Then went up the stairs. And finally arrived at the station's special room. This was a large gymnasium. I'm not going to get any answers here, am I? Maybe I should just think about it. What about you, E? Oh, you have an idea? Sure, that'll work. Here, I'll let you have a crack at it. Feel free to use those eyes to see what the problem is and your ears to hear what I'm saying. Oh, I forgot, you can't see anything and can't hear anything. Oops, my bad. Look, I'm going insane. I didn't mean to turn her disabilities into a mockery. I was just stressed out. I was frustrated at the situation, not at her. She was difficult to deal with. If only she could see and hear. I communicated with her some of my ideas, asking her if she had some. Well, if you want to clear our names of suspicion, the best way would be to find Smiley and apprehend him, but that seems impossible. But first, let's think about Smiley. From what you said, if we're pulling from the pool of those who are still alive, Smiley is anyone between Agnos, myself, you, or the other twin. Otherwise, Smiley is already, dead. I don't think you've seen the other twin yet, so for now let's consider them as a possible threat. It's sad to say, but we can't clear the other twin of suspicion. That means all we need to do is prove that she's Smiley, even if I don't want to do that. Something didn't feel right with E's words. I hadn't seen the other twin at all, that was true, but I thought about the team compositions we had. Jasmine had gone with Ray. This was what I couldn't remember. Jasmine had gone with Ray, E had gone with Marco, and Agnos had gone with H. Thinking about it that way, the bodies that turned up were Jasmine, Ray, and Marco. There was also a twin, but it was either G or H. Agnos had gone with H, so it's possible he would have killed her too, but then where was G? I mean, presumably he killed... Presumably he killed H at the original station that they went to, and then came back and killed the others. Would be my guess. I don't know. Maybe we'll have someone else show up. If Agnos killed H, then he could have done so many, many times. He could have done it in the room they explored. He could have done it on the station outside the room, in the lobby too. That meant that twin was probably G, who had gone with Marco. If all the teams came back, then why we didn't see H was simple. Agnos killed her, but not at the lounge. Yeah, what I was saying. Okay, they were expecting us to draw that conclusion, and I didn't have the time to investigate that. I shared my idea with E. You think so? If she's already dead, then we can't manage to prove she's Smiley, and this means that we're the last ones alive. You said we were at a station, right? She took a small pause, unsure of what she should say about it, but eventually she made the question clear. This station has already been explored, couldn't we just leave? Each of them has an exit, correct? I didn't understand the question. She should have been aware of the rules. Agnos shared those details with her, right? A cold shiver ran up my spine at that realization. Maybe the hand communication was just for show. Maybe she had absolutely no idea of what the rules really were, or perhaps he purposefully avoided telling her. As if he had intended her to die at some point due to a mistake like that. Damn it. I can't even tell you because there's barely any paper left. Fuck. Reusing any of them was actually impossible due to the way the pens work with paper. I tried doing it with one earlier, but the paper just tore up under the pressure. That wasn't good. I have to be careful what info I share with her. God damn it. I guess I don't have a choice. But I'll do a quick cursory look over this room. I stood up and went to search the room. Agnos wasn't stupid. He had a goal. Also, I thought that he probably wanted to live too, so he wouldn't blindly run up the stairs if he happened to get here. My presence upstairs with E was, in a way, a deterrent. He was aware of the rules and how he couldn't step in the lobby or beyond with more than 2 people at once. On the other side of the room was a prison. Yes, okay. You can't put more than 2 people in any of these. Yeah, you can't put more than 2 people in any of these rooms, okay. On the other side of the room was a prison leading to a few lockers. I searched that quickly, but nothing jumped at me. Back on this side, there was a safe. It was already unlocked when I checked. I opened it, and on the back I saw a message. It made little sense and was clearly used for whatever puzzle was in this room. Otherwise, the safe was empty. Safe, it's a safe. It could keep things safe. Agnos isn't stupid, he's very cunning. Maybe he could even trick me again and steal back the gun. If that happens, fuck. I had an opportunity to get rid of the gun right here and now. If I hid it, and only I knew where it was, he would have no choice but to take things slowly. I didn't find a password in this room. I didn't find a clue about Smiley. I didn't find anything really relevant, but I could get rid of this gun. Despite my resolve, I knew that I would shake in my boots when the time came to use it. This was dangerous for me, not for anyone else. I didn't even know how to operate it. Time was ticking down, too. Agnos would find us sooner or later. I already weighed my options. I could confront Agnos with the gun, or leave the gun here and investigate a way to leave otherwise. The third option was also the mega door I could unlock with the remote, but I still didn't know the password for it. If only I had hints about the password, but until I do, my options were limited. What was I thinking exactly? I had every piece of this puzzle in my hand. The remote, the gun, and E were all on my side. If I let go of any of them, I'd suffer when the time would come for the confrontation. Before I moved against Agnos, I needed some kind of plan. First, I needed to understand what he really intended to do, but I also needed to avoid him while doing it. I wrote to E with one of my last papers. 2 remained after this. So we're going to explore a new station. Is that really necessary at this point? What you said is true, it doesn't sound that safe. I squeezed my hand tighter in mine to reassure her. Unlike what she might have been thinking, this preparation was to be sure we'd be safe and not in danger. Why don't you let her read the braille on the back of the remote that was mentioned last time? That would be really helpful for her. Also, she must have learned braille pretty damn quickly. I don't know how long it takes to learn braille. But she said earlier that, like, she was only very recently became disabled. I genuinely have no idea how long it would take to learn. While it took its time getting to us, I was thinking about what we want to do. The best course of action was to go all the way to the other side, as far away from Agnos as I could get to. We entered the train and we resumed our little subway cycle. The train closed its doors. Then left the station. Prochaine station. Then we came to another one. Doors opened. Then closed. Alas, this cycle wouldn't be quite the same this time. An earthquake shook the train before it left from one of the stations to another, leaving me and E to hold into the interior to avoid falling down. Oof, what's happening? Eh? Damn. What's next? According to the speakers, the pool had been next. However, the train didn't move to leave the station. I decided to leave it after a few minutes. But once we were outside, I waited for the train to go. It didn't move, even after I left it. Is something broken? I looked towards the tunnel. It was completely dark. Amidst the darkness, I could faintly make out an outline. Was it another train? No, it was a pile of debris. The tunnel had collapsed. And that was why the train wasn't moving from here. Damn it, where else can we go? I checked out the little hallway in the darkness. The gate was locked. I swore under my breath. Come to think of it, the door leading up to the station was also closed. I couldn't explore here at all. Why was it closed? Was there someone here? Was it the twin? No, it wasn't the twin. Looking into the window proved it was nothing more than a pile of rubble. The staircase was just as ruined as the tunnel. What the hell is going on here? Was it an earthquake? Shit, we have to go. We have to leave this place. I quickly explained to E using one of my very last sheets of paper. Only one more remained after this. My plan was simple. We were going to walk through the tunnel. That's absurdly dangerous. We can't do this. Well, maybe in normal circumstances, but right now I guess we have no choice. You think we'll avoid every train until we get to another station? If one of them, even just one of them, came by, we'd die instantly. I knew that, but we didn't have a choice. It was either that, or stay here, starve and die. Or even worse, be crushed by falling rubble. I don't know. I'd probably rather the quick exit rather than, you know, starve to death, but what was it Julius Caesar said? Quick and unexpected. This place wasn't secure anymore. With all the pieces in my hand, I felt too confident to stay here and wait like a coward. I dropped down from the side of the station and helped E down there too, careful to avoid the rails. I instructed her to follow directly behind me. If she wanted she could also hold on to me. That was my last paper, but it was a necessity. Okay. He grasped my body from behind. Hers was warm and nice, comfortable even, if kind of heavy, and a constant reminder that I wasn't doing this for myself. I was doing this for both of us. Slowly, I set off. Unable to see, I walked through the darkness of the tunnel. I was hoping it wouldn't bend, but the rails were supported by another piece of cement. If my foot hit that, I could adjust myself. It took a long time. A very long time passed. Another earthquake occurred, but I held on. Even more time went by. Finally, I emerged into another station. We made it. How much longer do we have to, though? The station fine? His station led to what was referred to only as the bedroom. I stopped and E squeezed tighter around me. She was still here too. Good. I looked over the side of the station and through the door's window. Rubble everywhere. Even if the station looked fine under a certain angle, there were debris in other places. It had suffered more than the previous one. Shit, we still have to go through another one. Our trek resumed. This was repeated for the library, the pantry, and the lounge. Deciding not to stop at the lounge, I kept going, unwilling to see dead bodies again. While I was walking, an idea came to me. The damage done to these stations was far too big to be the work of just an earthquake. Besides, earthquakes didn't really happen here. Not like this. As I crossed to each station, there were more earthquakes happening. The ground shook, and I stopped to keep myself steady. Each of them, one by one, always while I was in the darkness, as if it was following me. These aren't earthquakes. They're explosions. The entire place is going under. I gritted my teeth while I made my way to the security room. Either this was Smiley's plan, or someone else was destroying this place. I could only think of Agnos. It reminded me of the events that had transpired not long ago in the subway in New York. They said that every station had exploded. Was it the same here? According to what the old man told me, he was the one who cleaned house. And that was one way of doing it. He was the architect of that destruction. Ah. Now I had proof of it firsthand. When I arrived at the security station, he was there. I dropped D and drew out my gun. Step away from the edge of the station. I ordered him to move, despite the fact he had the high ground. Sorry, all of the Star Wars memes coming to mind. I was armed and he was not. Well, well, if it isn't my assistant, what help you have been. Thankfully, I'm in a good mood. You're the one. Did you forget you killed my friends? Now, calm down. I see you still have the gun. You can kill me now if you want, but if you do, this entire place will collapse right over your head. That's what I thought. You're the one who screwed us over. Ah, that wasn't my intention. All I wanted to do was destroy this place for the good of mankind. Surely you must agree that terrible things happen. Honestly, I don't give a f***. I just want to leave this place, okay? And I will personally let you out and even drive you to your home in a limousine, if I had one, as long as you open that ridiculous door. I don't know how to. Lies and falsehoods. You're the one who managed to lure me into a false sense of security. I was tricked by you, Smiley, but no more. I clenched my teeth harder, getting angrier by the second. There was little I could do. With the gun trained on him, I could keep him from coming closer. But at this distance, any shot taken would probably miss. As in he's too far away? Listen, I don't know how to open that stupid door. I don't care, do whatever you want. I'll even give you that damn remote. Not Smiley. I don't know who the fuck it is. It can't be any of us three at this point, so stop accusing me. I reached into the bag in my hand and snagged up the remote while keeping the gun at him. I flung the remote over the edge of the station, sliding it over the smooth ground. It was the only sound interrupting my monologue. Killed my friends, Jasmine and Marco, the both of them were here. If I was Smiley, why the fuck would I put them here? Why would I be here too? You know, I kinda like Jasmine. No, fuck this, I loved her, you arsehole. I loved that fucking girl, and you killed her without a single care. You killed her, and you killed Marco, you robbed me of my friends. Hey, if you take another step, I'll shoot. I'd gun you down right now for all you did. I saw him take a step forward, but I quickly remedied that by adjusting my aim. He seemed to be thinking about what I was saying and weighing if it was worth it. My aim's better when I've got nothing to lose. This is the result of what your organisation does. It can go to hell. I swear to God, I'll send you there myself if you don't give me the way out right now. I was running on adrenaline at this point. I wasn't in control of myself anymore. All I felt was anger, sadness, hatred, and other powerful emotions I couldn't even name. I sensed dread, danger, but also euphoria. I was tired. I didn't want this madness anymore. I wanted out of here. I see. Believe me, I understand your plight. I glared at him as he made fun of my predicament. He held his hands up defensively. Oh no, I am being most sincere. I truly understand your pain. But that is a story for another time. How about never? Also fair. You want to leave, don't you? I will give you specific instructions that will let you do so. It is a little complicated, but I've already tested it, and the results speak for themselves. I didn't trust that bastard. I understand you don't trust me, but I have deduced you are not my enemy. I don't trust that bastard for a single second, but I didn't have a choice. This was the final step. Fine. Knox reached into his bag and took out a collar. I still have this one. It is the collar of the twin known as H. So she was dead, killed by him, no doubt. If you go to one of the scanner gates leading out of this place, you should be able to throw the collars I left in the lounge through them. They won't activate. That's because the scanners are unresponsive. I don't know why, but the collars didn't activate when I sent the other pair through. Are you sure it's not just because they were already dead? No, of course not. I went through just fine too. I assume they shut down when I dismantled the power source. I can't even tell you what's beyond the scanners if you don't believe me. I can even tell you, really. Yeah, I can even tell you what's beyond the scanners if you don't believe me. What is it? It's an elevator. Surely it must be one of the elevators which are normally used by people with disabilities in their legs, or for larger cargo. I didn't take it, of course, because I wasn't done here. Okay. If I throw those collars, it'll all be fine. And that's just so you can see for yourself. I doubt it makes a difference if you throw the collars through the scanners now or not. Well, you better get going. I won't detonate anything further until you make your way back. I hesitated. I didn't have a choice, so I acknowledged his advice. Okay, sure. Pray we never meet again. Yes. Pray we never meet again. I will be leaving this place once every station has been destroyed anyway. That is true justice, my boy. The truest justice. The one who stays alive decides it. By the time he was done talking about delusions of grandeur, I was already back on the track. I had quite a ways to go through the tunnel before I arrived there. I cast one glance back down towards the station. I keep reading words that aren't there. I cast one glance back towards the station and saw Agnos leave through one of the dark hallways at the sides. That bastard was walking station to station too. If he was doing it, perhaps they were closer than I imagined. When I walked, it didn't seem that far either, giving credence to this idea. I focused back on the trek. Just like before, while I walked, there was another earthquake. That bastard. Did he lie to us about to continue detonating the bombs in peace? Assuming he was doing it in order, he started with the power generator, and the next one had been the lounge. That motherfucker. I still made my way there because I didn't trust what he said. Back at the lounge, I helped a hopelessly confused E climb up onto the station platform. I followed with a mighty leap afterwards. So what is going on? I can't see where I'm going. Are we leaving this place? I wasn't able to let her know I was going up, so I reassured her with a few taps on her shoulder, after which I looked inside the lobby. No debris. As the way was clear, I went up the stairs to confront the grim sight again. I pondered on Agnes for a moment. Perhaps he was smiling? How would he know about the stations? How would he have gained a gun otherwise, too? Maybe he was just toying with me. Finally up the stairs, I saw it all again. Marco, Jasmine, G and Ray were all on the ground, dead. With Agnos admitting he had H's collar, all 5 others were definitely dead. I clenched my teeth and my fists in pure anger, which disappeared immediately afterwards. I didn't want to leave their bodies here, but I could hardly carry them out. Checking their bodies, I saw Marco and Ray's collars were gone. What Agnos said wasn't a lie. We really used them, huh? So the way out is open now. Ugh. Am I okay with this? Am I okay with letting your killer go rampant, Jasmine? Marco, what do you think? Got another dumb joke? He'd probably say, killer, I hardly know her. Something to that effect. My strength left me and I fell to my knees. I had no more will to stand up for several moments. I fell to an uncontrollable sobbing mess. This was real, and I needed to get it out of my system. I didn't have a lot of time to mourn and grieve. One thing was for sure. As soon as I'd be out of here, I'd go to the police and notify them about this dangerous man. That was my plan. But it wouldn't bring them back. There was no second chance. I weakly punched the ground before sniffling up my sorrows. I stood back up and squatted to pluck the collars from Jasmine and G's bodies. Of course they were dead, so the collar wouldn't kill them again. Strangely, they didn't detect me as using force, so they didn't activate either. Perhaps the collars knew their wearers were dead. But Simon, collars aren't people. People wear collars. Oh, Jasmine. Before I fell in my sorrows again, I got a grip and stood back up. I stashed them in my bag and left the area, never to return. Goodbye, Jasmine. Goodbye, Marco. G, H, and Ray, none of you deserved this either. But I was still alive. Not only that, but E was alive too. Assuming we would both survive this experience was special. It was one of a kind. Even if life returned to normal after this. The two of us now shared an undeniable link. We're leaving? I don't know what's taking so long, but I trust you. She offered me a smile as I took her hand in mine again. I trusted her too. I couldn't tell her, but she was warm. I could be comfortable with it. With her. The two of us set off through a tunnel again. More tremors had erupted while we made our way back to the security room again. There were no traces of Agnos. I called up the stairs and he wasn't there. I threw the collars out through the scanners. Nothing happened except the door closed behind them. Something like this triggered, then clearly that was the way out. Obviously with the door closed we couldn't take this exit anymore. I took E's hand and we went through another walk. I don't understand the process, but if it worked, it worked. I made my way back to the science lab. Once we arrived there, I took I and E up the stair. I took E up the stairs, and I am making up words right now. Once we arrived there, I took E up the stairs, and we stood in front of the scanner gate. I still had some apprehension. What if this didn't work? What if Jasmine, Marco, and the others died in vain? We're right there, aren't we? In front of the scanners. Don't worry, I'm here. We'll be fine. That's correct. How did she know that? I suppose we might have some sense of spatial awareness of this, but that's correct, we'd be fine. With E's hand in mine, I stepped through the scanners and closer to our good ending. Whatever it was that Agnos did, it worked. When we stepped through the scanners, nothing happened. E seemed a little afraid, and so was I, but it was safe. We're done. We're out. I shivered in realization of what we actually accomplished while releasing a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding by the same occasion. I didn't care if Agnos was still blowing up the other stations. I was out of here. I was free. I was with E. The girl pulled her hand away from mine. I took a quizzical look at her. She reached for her headphones and her mask with both hands. I think they're done. I didn't understand what she meant. Very soon it became apparent. It was her headset. She removed it after messing it with the two objects a little. I could see her face. It was some kind of miracle. Perhaps the timing was even too perfect. However, I didn't care. In that moment of euphoria, I felt light. This was only making it better. She beamed a smile at me, looking around herself. I thought she was cute. Everything was going to be fine now. I knew I shouldn't have insisted on the security and well-being of the situation, but I couldn't help myself. Death flags be damned, this was a good moment. I can see you. The light makes it somewhat difficult, admittedly. We weren't in an area with a strong light, but I figured if she'd worn that thing over her head every day for the past however many months, then it might have been jarring. You've been avoiding looking at me. Are you embarrassed? There's no need for that. We're out and everything's over now. I had been avoiding it, yes. Now that her senses had been restored, I felt a little weird about looking at her, or grabbing her hand as I did before. Well, you see, nonsense. The girl grabbed her hand instead, completely disregarding my argument. It was barely an argument to begin with. You might be wondering exactly what happened, so let me explain just a little then. Maybe you'll be more confident afterwards. Basically, my headset was on to repair my senses. Over many months it has been working to reapply a new sequence based on my DNA. You could think of it as 3D printing. They were remaking the interior of my ears and my eyes. This technology was still experimental when I was given the option to partake in it. I had no choice, because otherwise I wouldn't have regained my sight and hearing. And now we're both alive to see it. I'm so glad, Simon. Wait, how do you know my name? Oh, Agnos told me. Bastard. Come on, let's head out. Let's leave this horrible place behind. Let it disappear. Let's go and take a breath of fresh air. Sus? She smiled at me and urged me on. I thought there was no reason to delay it, so I went for it. We stepped further down the hallway past the scanners. Just like Agnos told me, once we were further in, we found an elevator. This was the one he told me about, the one that would allow us to leave. There were many buttons. I pressed a few of them, but none of them worked. Try the one labelled with the 0. I tried, but it didn't do anything. Let's try another one. I tried pushing the one with the -2 label and it worked. The elevator started moving. I expected it to take a few moments, but it went on and on. The elevator moved for what felt like entire minutes. How far underground was this place? I looked at E, who was just as puzzled as I was. We're way further under the metro. Normally it's not this deep underground. After 5 minutes, the elevator was still going up. Finally, it ceased its movements. Despite that, I didn't think we were above ground yet. Well, the -2 might be a clue there. I'll go take a look. You want to come too? No, I'll keep the door open so that it won't move no matter what. She stuck her arm through the open doorway and I nodded, stepping through. I went through darkness for a few moments, until I emerged in a strangely familiar room. This is just the scanner room. I'm on the other side now, though. Door's closed on the other side. Maybe it's best not to step through it. What does it mean? Are there many levels of this place? All with a similar contraption? I went back to the elevator to share that thought with E. She looked pensive for a moment. It was so strange to see her face after spending hours before without it being possible. This doesn't feel right. Look at the buttons. They're all numbered in descending order except for 0, which is at the bottom. It goes from -1 to -28. I pushed the button labelled 0, but once again the elevator didn't move. Why is it not working? Maybe I have a hypothesis as to why. First of all, I wish I could know at which floor we'd been before, but it doesn't matter too much, I guess. You know how this is established far below the earth? Maybe whoever did this is using a real place as a cover. Imagine if this place was under the subway. You can't actually reach the ground floor because someone has an elevator there already. If it's the same elevator, tower, whatever they're called, then it might detect something at floor 0 already. That's kind of annoying because it means that until the elevator gets called to floor 1 or 2, we can't really get out of it. You said there was something like a door, right? Yes. There was a scanner hall right at the end of the bend in the tunnel. What was beyond it? There was a closed door. That means maybe they built this place on several floors, an entire system of trains over 28 floors, deep into the earth, and we just happened to have been on the maybe 18th one? Which means the door was closed because people already escaped from that floor. Maybe they're the ones already up there. No, wait. If they were, then this elevator would be up there. Let's test it anyway. She pushed the button labelled -1. The elevator moved upwards again. Yes, that works. The other floors work, but not floor 0. We just have to wait until the elevator's gone and we'll be home free. Okay, what do we do to pass the time then? I don't know. We can share information. She had a very complicit tone. I replied in kind. What, like, if I'd heard of any plans to assassinate the president? No, you silly boy. I mean stuff like your favourite colour. Oh, that kind of stuff. Yeah, mine's yellow. It's kind of a weird colour, I guess. A lot of people don't like it because it reminds them of bees or something. I can't really fault them. Bees don't go for you anyway. Those are wasps. Yes, well, wasps. Yeah, well, wasps are also yellow. Yellow and also black. Mine would be blue, I think. Or green. Green, huh? Green isn't a creative colour, though. Green is not a creative colour. Oh dear. Hey, who's prejudiced now? Truth be told, I didn't really have a favourite colour. I liked all of them. Saying it like that would make me sound indecisive though. Speaking of sharing information, I still didn't know her name, right? This was the perfect time to ask. Now that we're out, you still haven't told me your name yet. Timing. However, there would be no sharing of names. The sudden tremors that came from the ground made me lose my footing, and I crashed to the ground similar to what he did. What the fuck is going on? I rose back from the ground, holding for dear life onto the parts of the elevator. Oh, it's Agnos. He's got to the science lab and he's blowing up the elevator. Watch out, it's happening again. I tripped when the next tremor occurred. Then I rolled out of the elevator since its doors hadn't closed yet. I must have hurt my ankle because I couldn't rise back up again. Yeah. E, are you okay? I checked in with her, but my state wasn't anything great either. I realised what stopped me standing up wasn't just my ankle, but my entire leg. More debris came down. The end result was that I couldn't get my lower body up. I reached for E to try and have her help me pull up from the ground, but she'd fallen inside the elevator and she sprained her ankle. Hold on to me. We need to get above ground. The zero button must work now. Wait, no, this... Not this. I don't... She reached for me as the ground fell under me. It freed me, but there was nothing for me to hold on to anymore. I did a miraculous leap forward and I snatched the side of the elevator, even if my lower body dangled above empty space. If I fall, it won't be pretty. Grab onto my hand. She reached for me, and I did exactly that, but I didn't think she was strong enough to pull me in. Instead, I reached with my other hand to grasp around the open doors. The closest button was the zero button. I smashed my hand on it with extreme effort. Yeah, it's still not working, you stupid shit. I don't want to go without you anyway. Come into the elevator. Why are you stuck? Why won't you get up? Why is this happening now? It's my fault. I should have killed that arsehole. Don't think that it's over. You can still make it in. You have to go without me. The floor isn't too far above. I think I can make it. Too far below, even. And then I'll find you. No, the floor's way too low. Look under you. It's a few stories tall. She was right. If I let go here, I'd die. Unfortunately, I'd lost most control of my legs by now. Falling materials and rubble had irremediably, broken my legs. Irremediably. Oh, I see. Irremediably. Irremediably. Is that a word? I felt my lower half filled with nothing but pain. Most likely my blood was staining the entire broken hallway. It was most likely leaking down the side of the elevator shaft on the outside. Here. My insides were slowly oozing out, mixing with dust and debris. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. I pulled myself forward with a louder growl. Finally I reached further inside. Alright, you have to live. I slammed my hand on the only other button I could reach. I couldn't see it, but if I remembered right, the left column was the odd numbers. The bottom one was -27 then? No! I released everything. The door was closed onto my neck. I was suspended against the wall by my neck, and the collar detected force being applied. Soon it beeped. Oh, fuck. I didn't mean for this, but you have to live. Don't worry about it. I'm fine. And then my head rolled into the elevator. The unfortunate result... Oh, God. This shouldn't be funny, but it kind of is. The unfortunate result made E scream like a maniac. I couldn't blame her. Due to my mistake, the girl had my severed head next to her, and my neck hadn't even finished cooking yet. The elevator began its descent down to floor 27, where hopefully the elevator shaft would survive the next blasts from the explosives. And hopefully this wouldn't become a coffin with my head and a pure girl within. He had to suffer this horrific vision because of me. Far from what I expected, she grabbed the sides of my head instead and lifted me up until she looked at me directly. Listen well, and never forget. Imprint it in your memories, don't even think about forgetting. You have to remember the fourth letter is Y. Okay. I'm definitely not grabbing a piece of paper in case it actually matters that I remember this. I don't know, because it's the sort of thing that I'm like, okay, depending on how they've done it, maybe the character will remember, maybe I'll have to remember, so I'm going to take a note. Why? Okay, I had no idea what that meant. I would never find out. I expired shortly after. Thankfully for me, when beheading, the head remained somewhat alive for a short moment. Of course, I couldn't make sense of anything, though. I couldn't even move anything. Pain was like if the world had fallen upon me all at once. And yet soon it was over. My last thoughts were full of regrets. He would live on. I'm coming, Marco. Jasmine, wait for me. Ending a head good end. Well. The end is reached, the story is not over, the gears of fate continuously turn, becoming the truest embodiment of an endless circle. Wow. Ah, yes I can see. Okay. Ah, they've given me the flowchart now. Ah, okay, so... interesting. Okay, so I can see... okay, so I can see where the divergences are. There's a divergence there, a divergence there, divergence there. So that's interesting. So that's presumably where we started. The bit where we got something slightly weird. So do we have to... okay, no, we don't have to do the thing that... because I remember Birth Me Code had a very different save system, where basically every time you wanted to go through the flowchart, you had to do something slightly different. So we've got to... so we got start. I wonder if this then joins up here, maybe. Let's go here and see, because I don't remember what choices. Ah, thus. Oh, so this is back here. So this is where we get shooting, but we can't change. I don't think I got any. Oh, now that's interesting. So it forced me to take a choice first time through. But now it's actually given me the ability to choose. Okay. That's odd. But... let's see. I'm guessing this leads to bad end, then? I made my choice. It was a stupid choice. I didn't know why I chose this option, but I chose it anyway. I threw the gun into the safe and locked it up. When I closed it, even I couldn't open it anymore. I didn't know the combination. At least Agnos couldn't use it against me. And if it came to it, I could simply let him know where it was as a bargaining chip while I made my escape. Perhaps leaving it here was in my best interests. I believed that if I made my interest in learning how to leave apparent, it would make it clear I wasn't Smiley or his accomplice. If I was, then I could have just gone. I would know how to leave if I was Smiley. If I were. But I didn't know, so I couldn't be. Yeah. This is as sound a plan as I can make it. It's not about convincing him that I'm not Smiley, but that I can't be Smiley. This might have worked for me, but what about he? Glanced at the girl. She was still oblivious to most events happening. If she was Smiley, why would she hide her senses like that? This was most likely a good point to bring up when I'd eventually meet Agnos again. Okay, Simon, you can do this. It's just an old man. Convince him you're fine, get your ticket out, and leave with E while he does whatever here. Using some of my last bits of paper, I notified E that I was going to find Agnos. She vehemently opposed me doing such. Don't do it. It's too dangerous. We should just leave right now. I used another one of my last sheets of paper to explain to her that we couldn't leave. There were scanner gates, and they would detect if we didn't find the ninth person. Oh, that does sound dangerous, but is it worth taking the chance? I'll follow you anyway. She resigned herself to my choice, and we both left the area. Our destination was the science lab, where he would, no doubt, turn up eventually. My cowardly nature was rearing its head as I waited on the station at the science lab room. My knees quivered slightly. Damn, he was taking his time, and all this wait did was put me on edge. It was minutes later that I realised I'd been waiting in vain. He wasn't coming with the train. He was at the station already. He was upstairs. Footsteps made it clearer. He'd been immobile for a while, most likely trying to open the door but failing. Without the remote, which I still held, he most likely stood no chance. I used my last paper to tell E to stay put. If I went upstairs to confront him, she wouldn't be in danger. But if it happened she went up the stairs too, then it wouldn't be funny. Unfortunately, that was also my last paper. I could no longer communicate with her. Understood. I'll stay down here, don't worry. Silently, I left her side and went to the lobby. I was getting really tired of these rooms. Staircases and the metro too. After this, I wouldn't take it anymore. Once this was done, I'd get my own fucking car and use it. It was probably worse for the environment, but at least no one would abduct me in a car. I mean... this is sort of true. They'd have to stop you and get you out of your car first. But yes. No, it's probably more secure to take public transport. Fuck it. I still wanted to never have anything to do with this place. I climbed the stairs and came up to the second floor where the science lab was situated. As soon as I stepped in, he turned around to face me, having been busy trying to force the door open. I could tell he'd amassed a lot of tools to do so, some of which I didn't even know the purpose of. Ah, there you are. I've been waiting for you, my associate. You have the remote and I require it to open this door, so don't make this more difficult than it should be. What tells you I'll hand over the remote? Why did you give it to him in the first place? Like, why? Why, Agnos? Why? My eyes trailed over the many chemicals he tried to mix. This place really looked like a science lab now. It was as if he believed some mixture would dissolve the door. So far, he'd made no headway. I could also tell my questions angered him a bit. Good. If I could tick off this piece of shit a little, it might distract him from outsmarting me. I am completely aware we have not been getting along as much as we should have. Instead of trusting each other then, I thought it best if we didn't, at least to distrust each other. He stepped forward around the middle of the table, trying to get close to me. Unfortunately, I moved in the opposite direction and we did this strange dance around the table for a few seconds. I am still a knight of justice, but would you stand with those who sin? Surely, you must... You must tell that while I've done something horrible, it was necessary. None of it was necessary. I already figured out some things and I was going to share them before you put a bullet in my friend's head. And what do you mean stand with? I'm not standing with anyone. All I care about is leaving this place, but I don't know how. You keep telling me that I'd be told things on a need-to-know basis, but I need to know now. How do we leave? I'm not Smiley, he's not Smiley. If she was Smiley, why would she block her senses? If I was Smiley, why did I not run away? We don't know how to leave, we don't know what to do. We're not Smiley, get it already. He listened intently. How about we do a trade? I need that remote, I need the remote, and you apparently need what I know because I have understood how to leave this place. I wasn't sure about this. He might have been bluffing. I'll hand over the remote after you tell me then. I won't need it after I can leave this place, so I have no intention or need to double-cross you. Is that okay? I suppose that would do. However, I require some kind of proof or insurance that you will do as you say and give it to me regardless. I cannot act in good faith without sufficient proof. After all, why should I trust you? That you would hold to your word after you've left me on the station and without my tool. Where is it anyway? I'll even tell you that. I'll tell you where it is first, then you tell me how to leave, and then I'll give you the remote, okay? You drive a hard bargain. Very well. I don't know if I could trust him still, but just telling him where the gun was would be enough. He couldn't open the safe anyway. Didn't he... I don't remember if it was his team that went to the gymnasium. But given what's her name, H's body wasn't there, I guess probably not. He killed the people who were able to open that safe. Okay, the gun is... But as soon as I spoke, he took off in a sprint. Damn it, did he get me? I quickly launched after him and barreled down the stairs. Hey, we had a deal, piece of shit, what are you doing? Simply what I must, young man. I do not actually care for the gun, so I will make you give me the remote. When I arrived at the station, I saw exactly what his plan was. He'd been stalling this whole time, trading places with me until he could get to the station. He knew I was here with E, and now... He was holding her hostage. Now give me the damn remote and I'll release her, then be on my way. Otherwise she will assuredly end up electrocuted to death. I clenched my teeth. I ran out of bargaining chips. Now he had everything in his hand. I felt sorry for E. This was my fault. Completely my fault. I should have known you would do something without honour like this. Doesn't it mean anything to be a knight of justice or whatever? The most important thing is to get real justice, and if you are Smiley, then you will die. But I wish to secure that remote and see what's beyond the room first, so give it over to me. He smirked while E trembled, scared witless. Who's this? Please, anyone, help. I guess I have no choice. Is that fine for a deal? He softened his stance up a little, while I reached in the bag for the remote. I leaned down and slid it over to the ground towards him after he nodded, agreeing to my terms. However, I knew he wasn't trustworthy. He released E to grab the remote. At least he was true to his word. I believe your intention in asking me about the way to leave is genuine. However, I cannot say that I have sufficient proof to think otherwise of E. For all I know, she is the one behind all of this. No, she's not. Her senses are all hidden, and... You don't understand. None of that is real. What she wears only obscures them. There is no special technology in this headset. In short, she is not disabled. What? It is a lie I came up with when she arrived here with me. I told her to play along and act disabled. It would make her look inoffensive, and she wouldn't be in harm's way. It saved her a couple of times already. Otherwise, she might have died before. Just as I had given her this life. Now that I no longer can trust her, it is time for me to take it back. Suddenly his hands rose, and she shoved her right in the stomach with remarkable strength. The girl held it with her hands, breath cut short. I lunged forward while screaming. No, E, what the fuck? You piece of shit. Simon. She fell to the tracks and flailed wildly as the current coursed through her. Within a single moment, the girl had completely expired. She was dead. Even after she died, her body's spasm didn't stop as the current continued to course through her. I watched in horror. And now for this entire event's resolution. You lying sack of crap. You didn't tell me how to leave, and you harmed E anyway. And that is important. All that is important is my mission, and you will not interrupt it. You and I are both as insignificant to humanity as the faraway stars... I've read the word stairs too many times, evidently. Stars in the night sky. could say that neither of our actions hold any veritable weight. Even if she'd lived longer, all she would have done is accidentally help others in their atrocities. Nonsense. You killed an innocent because you couldn't trust them. You're the one with the issues. Believe what you want. He disappeared into the lobby. I needed to punish him. How? Rain wasn't coming yet. Maybe if I went down to the rails. I could hoist myself back up, but this was dangerous. All I wanted was to grab the girl and tug her back up. It wasn't possible. I tried for a few minutes, but all I could reach without getting struck by a shock was her collar. By the time I managed to lift her up into the side of the station, my hands were charred by the electricity. I didn't care though. Pain was nothing. All there was in my mind was rage and vengeance. He killed my friends, he killed the twins, he killed Ray, he even killed E, and now I was going to kill him. You're a dead man, Agnos. I took the girl's body with me. She was strangely heavy, but it was probably due to her status as a corpse. My hunch was right. The moment I bring it up the stairs, we count as 3 people. Agnos, it's the pizza delivery man. Special delivery just for you. It's justice in a package. You fucking asshole. I walked up the stairs, screaming my one-liner with pride. When he saw me carrying E inside, he panicked. No, why did you do this? We're going to die too, you idiot. Our collars were already beeping. I don't care. I'm the fucking delivery man, and this is your pizza. That'll be 25. And then I couldn't speak anymore. My headless body fell to the ground as the lasers was triggered, slicing off Agnos's head by the same occasion. I watched him with a certain satisfaction as both our heads fell to the ground. I even managed to work up a tiny bit of muscle to smile, or perhaps I only imagined it. That bastard could find solace in the fact true justice had been served. Then I shut down in complete darkness, the nothingness greeting me like an old friend. Ending B, delivery bad end. Okay. Smile and shine once again. Oh, I just got an achievement. Thanks for getting all the cyan endings. Okay, so we now have... There is a very noisy dog outside. I don't imagine you guys can hear that, but you know. There is. So... You can either start back here. This, I think, we need the password for. So we can't do that just yet. Oh, that's right. That's the green lock. That's why. Right, I see. I see. So in the ending screen, we had the green lock, and then we had the other colours. So presumably, saying we need. Right. Okay. That makes some sense. So now, which one of these do we want to go for? That was E. Guessing that's Jasmine. Yellow and orange twins, maybe? Who do I want to go with? That is the question. Who's actually... Ah, hello, zoom in. Move around. Okay. So... We can either be good and go and see our waifu. Or we can try one of the others. Let's go find out what Jasmine's deal is, because I think she is holding on to a lot more than we know. I've tried talking to Jasmine. Yeah. I mean, this is the only option. Wait. Oops. I left Jasmine and Dave together for them to talk, instead taking out a couple of ends from the bag I figured perhaps E would have some good idea of what we just found. I wrote about the strange secondary lab to her, and she replied with an inquisitive look. I could tell even if her features were obscured. Oops. I can't say I know what its purpose is. Our laboratory, you say. Can you describe it briefly? I wrote on the paper some more. I didn't have a lot of time, but if she asked for details, then perhaps she figured something out that I didn't think about. I exposed the stuff that had been lying around. Formaldehyde, the computer, password cracking, what I saw in the second room. While waiting for her answer, I glanced at Jasmine. She was relaying what she knew to A, except she completely omitted the second laboratory. I see. Or, well, I guess I don't. Sorry, I'm not very helpful. I don't know what it's about. It's a laboratory, though. Maybe... She pensively brought a hand up to her headset. Was it related to that laboratory? Suddenly I believed that perhaps the link she shared with this place may be more conventional than ours. However, before I could ask her anything else, the station came into view outside of the windows. The train was going to stop. Extending this was an exercise in futility for the time being. Let me just check. Do we have skip? Oh no, we don't. That's a bit of a pain. I was hoping we would have a skip only previously read. But there we go. The train stopped at the station within the next half minute. After you, then. The old man went to fetch E while I left the train with Jasmine. Sure, we need all this secrecy. Information is important here. You never know who you can trust. We took our conversation further away into the lobby. Then we went up the stairs ahead of the old man and E, who had just come out of the train. I don't want to say we can't trust them, but the lounge was becoming our hangout spot rather quickly. It made me comfortable, but Jasmine's presence was slightly unnerving. I didn't truly believe the old man was suspicious of our secret, or that he had any right to be doubted. After all, he had been helpful so far. He gave me a way to talk to E, and he shared information. That's too paranoid. Look who's talking, Mr. Afraid of Everything. Hey, that's not fair. Life's not fair either, but I shouldn't be this harsh. You're right. Listen, I just think there's a bigger puzzle to solve beyond each individual station. What makes you say that? She closed her eyes and thought about it intensely, reclining on a couch. I joined her. Even if I got mad at her a little, it wouldn't last very long. I don't know. I just feel that way, I guess. We found that door and we have no way to open it. Back in the first station we explored, Ray and me, we found some other stuff. There was a hidden room. It just felt very strange. Look, I just want to get out alive. Maybe we'll get to find all this out later together, but we need to have a later. Yeah, we need to have a later. Jasmine was no longer merely thinking about the situation. She leaned towards me, insistently, as if seeking my approval. I could do nothing but nod. Something felt wrong, but I didn't really have a grip on reality. Where were the others? Where were the old man and the disabled girl? Didn't they have come up the stairs too? Instead I found myself a prey for Jasmine's ideas. She was right in a way. It was difficult to trust anyone but one's close friends. However, the thought that Jasmine felt different flashed by again. I couldn't shake that feeling, and it made me quite uncomfortable too. Jasmine was dependable, but Jasmine was also a person who usually went with the flow. She didn't really force it. Was she a leader? Totally. But she wasn't one to direct things, and she'd been quite bossy so far. And yet she was the only person I could fully trust here other than Marco. I felt something against my cheek. It was her hand. She was holding my chin and she turned her head towards me. All I could see now was Jasmine. Let's just get out of here alive, okay? Anything could happen here and actions speak louder than words, don't you agree, S? That's why I'm pretty sure this is all stuff we've read earlier. Yes, this is the her floating bit. I'm wondering if we've actually triggered the other branch or not. I think this is all... Oh. Ah! This is a choice. This is a choice we can make. Faced with the choice between heading out with a stranger alone and remaining at the lounge, I chose to stay. Well, couldn't we have a stroll here then? We have to decide our next team soon. We might be better off remaining here. I did try to disguise my lack of trust by a sensible suggestion, but the sensitivity wasn't buying it. The old man generally acted in our best interest. However, a part of me believed that was a lie. Normally I'd have gone with him, but that little voice was too loud for me to ignore. If I went with him, I thought I'd get roped into something I couldn't come back from. I suppose that could work then. Very well, let's take a walk around the lounge. As we came back up the stairs, I paid little attention to everyone else. I had to figure out a way to get him to stop following me. Perhaps it would have been simpler to bring him to the others. If we were surrounded by them, he probably wouldn't ask me about whatever it was he planned to do. However, doing that would also potentially put Jasmine in peril. If it had anything to do with the station we just explored, I should have counted myself lucky he went for me and not her. And then again, I didn't really know why I believed what he wanted to ask me was about the stuff we saw at the station. It was a little odd. For some reason I just knew. I also knew going there would lead to unsavory events. I can read. Nothing good could come out of that outcome. I decided it was best to try and pass some time doing useless stuff. If I looked around for long enough while acting clueless, maybe he'd get bored and decide to move on. Really? This is what we're doing. There were a lot of bottles laid out in the open. It was almost scary how many kinds there were. I recognised a few well-known brands, and then there were others like Bern Castell wine. Oh dear. What did Bern Castell even mean anyway? Okay, I was not expecting a reference to that here, but you know. Was it a location? Yes. Bern Castell is a place. Or Bern Castella. No, Bern Castella would be of Bern Castell, I think. I can't remember, I'd have to go and look it up. All of those are alcoholic, right? Indeed. That's why I didn't mess with them. Most of us can drink them here, of course, but I think we must remain level-headed if we want to make it out of here. People laid over at Ray. Specifically the ones A had taken in order to mix our cocktails had been under this counter. Perhaps those would be worth investigating. If I did so, however, I would certainly not get to explore more. Had I wasted enough time to get him off my trail? I wasn't sure. Judging by how he kept following me, I thought that perhaps this was a waste of time for me too. Perhaps he wouldn't go away. Thinking about it, this meant continuing on wouldn't be an issue, as it would be inevitable, but he would keep tailing me anyway. Let's do that. Lifting up the countertop piece that allowed us to move behind the counter, I went there, followed by A as always. I examined the bottles more closely and then squatted down to look at some bolted metallic cupboards. Not boiled metallic cupboards. Why would you boil a cupboard? I don't know. Anyway, you won't get to open those. I tried. That's how I knew they were refrigerated. If you put your hands against the surface, you'll feel it. I did as much, and true enough, the surface was cold. Wait, touching metal that was cold was a very bad idea. The skin could get stuck due to the ambient heat, and I pulled away from it. Oh yeah, you needed to have it wet, so it froze and stuck there like a tongue. Or maybe not. I didn't know how it worked. The bolts are too big for us to open. We'd need some serious handy tools for this. Was there anything else you wished to take a look at then? He diverted the topic. I was fine with this. The twins still hadn't arrived, so I needed to buy a bit more time. I took a glance under the counter. Ah yes, the other drinks. There are many, aren't there? I actually looked at all of them earlier, and none seem to be alcoholic down there. Why would you have a bar but with nothing alcoholic? Well, if you wanted to have alcoholic drinks, there are some on the counter. However, I wouldn't trust them. They've been kept out of a fridge for what looks like months, perhaps. It's possible the fridges below are just for show, and this is all there is. I opened the little cupboards under the counter, the ones that weren't bolted shut. These enclosed boxes were refrigerated too, but no matter which one I opened, they all contained drinks for kids. One could argue stuff like soda wasn't for kids, and I'd be in agreement, though. What surprised me was the assortment of drinks. It didn't make any sense. Grape drinks over there, orange drinks over here, and the best of all, there was some honeyed stuff or something. I couldn't read the labels. A lot of them were foreign languages. I could only guess what they were about based on the pictures, if there were any. So how did Smiley get all this anyway? Was he rich? I figured some of the drinks here were actually much older than I was. That fact was confirmed momentarily when Ace spoke again. None of those doors were locked up, surprisingly enough, and what's more interesting, all of these bottles might not be alcoholic, but they are fairly old. I believe they may be older than I am, which is strange, because normally you'd be worried over expiration dates, yes? I was about to reply and agree, but when I took a look at him, he seemed even whiter than usual. His skin was pale, as if he'd realised something. Wait, what does this mean? Unfortunately for me, I wouldn't learn what he'd just thought about. As if the devil himself had chosen this moment to ruin everything, a scream pulled me out of my contemplation. Perhaps what he was looking at was what made him feel such fear. The old man was already observing the situation from above the counter. I rose up too, and the sight came, grim and strange. There was one of the twins on the ground, with a knife lodged into her chest. Well, that went from 0 to 10 in one thing flat, one text box flat. I couldn't tell if it was G or H. Next to the immobile body was Jasmine, on the ground, straddled by the other twin. Whichever one this was, she was wailing against the pink-haired girl, screaming and tearing up a storm. Something was weird. I felt strangely detached from the scene, despite someone having died. It was like this didn't make sense. The twins hadn't come back yet. How were they here? I'd have known if they'd come back. I was waiting for it to happen. Come to think of it, where was Ray? He wasn't there. Ray and Marco weren't there, in fact. The entire room was moving. As I watched everything in slow motion, the splitting headache ran through my head. It was freezing me on the spot. Where was Marco? Where was Ray? Why were the twins here? In the span of a single moment, I realised that they had been here for a while. Somehow my memory of Marco and Ray being here was false. The twins had returned first instead. You killed my sister. Why? Why did you... Why? Why? Why do you keep saying she's an imposter? My sister isn't an imposter. H isn't an imposter. I finally put together that this twin was G. H was an imposter? What was Jasmine saying? A was on the move too, but whatever he did, I didn't know. As I sank back under the counter. Please don't fight here. We have to sort out the situation, no matter how dire. Go with me. She assassinated her. I was holding my head in pain as the others tried to handle the situation. Something in me was wrong. I was still fixated on that strange moment when Ray and Marco were replaced by the twins. Yeah. What the fuck is this? I finally forced myself up. I had to do something. I ran around the counter to do something, anything, and for that matter, where did Jasmine even get this knife? A small flashback enlightened me. Right, she disappeared when we went to the laboratory, didn't she? Did she grab the knife back there? Why? Was it for this? Yeah, in the previous one we noticed that there was a knife missing, and I was like, oh, I wonder if Jasmine's got it. Okay, so yes, the answer is she did. Had she planned to kill H already? As I moved in, I saw the situation. The old man was holding G under both her arms, but he was having issues keeping her off the warpath, and Jasmine was still on the floor, trying to stand up. If I did anything, the hostilities would begin anew. I moved forward and tried to grab my friend to stop her from fighting the twin. Yet as I reached for her, Jasmine dodged my hand and instead elbowed me in the face. Ow! Jasmine! Considering the situation, I didn't care about the nicknames anymore. Jasmine slipped out of my grasp to grab the knife. In the same movement, G kicked A in the knee, making him lose his footing just long enough for her to sprint out of his hold. Jasmine deflected the girl running at her with her free hand, and the next scene was something even weirder than before. I was even more detached from this one. Sure, this dealt with my issue, but Jasmine stabbed the old man in cold blood. All he let out was a weak noise before collapsing to the ground. Some bloody red typhoon was rapidly rushing out of his body. The imposters, all of them will get it. Every imposter here has got to die. Very sus. Very sus. Ah. Jasmine had stabbed him in an important place, since he seemed to have gone into shock. Moments later, I thought for sure that he had expired. All the colour remaining in his face was draining away. His breathing had already ceased the moment she stabbed him. Perhaps she'd gotten him in the lung. I wasn't sure exactly what this meant. His entire body was softening up, and he dropped down like a marionette without his strings. As I watched, powerless, G's cry was mixed with the noise of the body falling to the ground. Just like the expiration dates for the drinks, his own had come. Jasmine, stop. Why him? What are you... I stopped talking when I saw her pull the knife out from the old man's body. Her gaze was unfocused. It was all over the place. Her eyes were always open and never even blinked anymore. Thought I imagined it, but I definitely saw her irises wiggling slightly. They were vibrating back and forth once in a while. What happened to you, Jasmine? My inertia ended the moment she turned her head away from the old man to look elsewhere. Where? Nearby, E was standing up. She clearly felt something was amiss. However, she also couldn't tell what was happening. What exactly was happening? What was exactly happening? Yeah, words. And Jasmine had her sights on her. Despite all that Jasmine was doing, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. I didn't know what was happening to her. It was like a demon possessed her. I just needed to destroy that demon. If I destroyed that demon, Jasmine would come back to me. Her eyes. Well, they weren't fine. She wasn't fine, and I needed to free her from that demon. In a split moment of my choice, I saw two things. One, G was utterly useless. She was horrified, and in her state, she was much more focused on her twin's dead body. Two, Jasmine was lunging forward. I only had a single moment to act. I could either slam Jasmine to knock her out cold, or pull E out of her trajectory. I was about midway between both. Small hesitations because I didn't know if I'd hurt Jasmine doing it. At the same time, I couldn't stand by idly when E was in danger. Well, take her out! I chose to knock Jasmine away with a powerful slam of my shoulder. She was instantly knocked out when she collided against the wall. Perhaps I'd gone a little too hard. It hurt to do this to my friend, but I had no choice. It was either knocking her out or risking her damaging someone else, or even herself, even more than a simple knockout. Something in her caused her to go out of her mind. At last she dropped a knife on the way down, and she crumpled to the floor in a heap of Jasmine. The weapon was covered with a red, drying bloodbath. I panted heavily, calming down after the altercation. It had drawn a lot out of me just to do that much. Meanwhile, G was still watching, unable to move. It was perhaps a better way to say she was no longer willing to move. She was still frozen in shock, simply put. This whole business, it's... What even happened? I don't know, but we have to treat her. We need to bring her back. Bring her back? She looked at me, strangely bewildered. I spoke about Jasmine, but perhaps she misinterpreted it. I credit myself to not give her false hopes. We have to restrain Jay, so that way she won't hurt us. She killed my sister. That's all I want. I want my sister back. She clenched her teeth. The sadness in her voice was impossible to mistake. I approached her to console her, but she glared at me. Don't come closer. She stood up and hesitated before grabbing her sister's body and carrying it off. I watched it all happen, unable and unwilling to get in the middle of them. I waited a few moments, though I knew I didn't have all the time in the world. Jasmine was knocked out, but she'd come awake sooner or later. I took a look at her body. No, not like that, just a cursory one. Making sure she was still alive was a priority. She was not bleeding anywhere, but the hit she got was definitely strong. Looking around for anything to help me, I noticed that when G carried H's body away, she left something behind. The other twin once carried a map on her, and now it was on the floor. I found it strange that G didn't come back for it, but I wasn't going to complain. I took it and looked it over. There were the names of every station and a map of all of them, separately in a pile. One of them was an infirmary. I can use this to keep Jasmine bound and treat her if needed. Didn't A say that he came back from the infirmary earlier? That means it's sold and vacant. I also had to take care of the knife. This kind of thing was too dangerous to leave lying around or to give to anyone. I needed to get rid of it in a way that would make it impossible for anyone to get it anymore. Finally, I needed to clean it. First, I needed to clean it. I loathed doing this, but I used A's body to do so. I wiped it off with a piece of his clothing. Yeah, I didn't have any other way. This place surprisingly didn't have a sink, and the water cooler was just a show. It was empty. I had a passing thought for G while I was cleaning the knife. He was the only one apart from Jasmine and me who knew what transpired here. She was on the loose. It would definitely be different the next time we met. Once she'd process everything, it would change her. Something like that could break someone. Perhaps she was already broken. It was partially my fault. Okay, first order of business done. Now let's leave the knife somewhere no one will find it. I put it in my outfit and lifted Jasmine from the ground to carry her down the stairs. I needed to take the train with her to head to the infirmary. Oof, she was heavy. Way heavier than I thought she'd be. I wasn't someone who was especially fit, just average, and so carrying a body like hers slowed me down considerably. We could have eaten less strawberry cake at least. I knew she loved it, but this was a bit much. I made sure the twins weren't downstairs before I stepped out of the little lobby. The train must have passed. I don't know which direction she took. Perhaps she went the same way. That wouldn't be good. I spoke aloud to organise my thoughts. I needed to find a place where no one would take the knife anymore. That's it. The rails. No one would cross them for it, especially if I threw it into the darkness. No one could see it. That's such a good idea. I lowered Jasmine to the ground slowly, then I went to the little dark hallway, and just before entering it, I looked into the tunnel. I couldn't see a thing beyond this room. Perfect. It was pitch black. I threw the knife, which echoed as it landed with loud clanks and then nothing. It's gone now. No one will make use of it again. It was as if I spoke to reassure Jasmine, but she was still out cold. The train arrived momentarily. I painstakingly lifted Jasmine back up to enter the train with her. There was no one else around. Everything was eerily deserted, eerily silent, just eerie. What a mess. I set Jasmine in a seat. She looked like a disarticulated marionette. I made sure to position her in such a way to have the momentum work with her posture. The train set off. I had to count the stations not to miss my stop, but I also wanted to think about the situation. So let's make sense of all this fuckery. I felt like Ray swearing so much. We all came back from our stations, except for the twins. Marco, Ray, Jasmine, A, E, and myself were there. Wait, fuck. E was there. I completely forgot about her. I slapped my face. Shit. In the moment I didn't realise I left her there, since she was so quiet. I'd go back for her later, I thought. Whatever, right now let's just focus on this. I'm not seeing Marco or Ray anywhere at the moment. That's so weird. They're not on any of these stations either. It's like they just vanished. Twins weren't in the lounge. Marco and Ray were there. Then when I came back upstairs, my memory's kind of fuzzy about it. Were the twins there? I don't know. Yeah. I ruffled my hair rapidly, making a mess of it. The more I thought about Marco and Ray, the harder my head hurt. It's like reality didn't want me to think about it. Did I mistakenly see them? Was I hallucinating? Were my eyes playing tricks on me? I shook my head to clear it all up. Thankfully, the train stopped at the station I wanted to go to. It had stopped a few times prior, but I didn't pay attention to those. I only mentally counted them. I grabbed Jasmine again and quickly hoisted her up over my shoulder. Ugh, I had to get used to this, especially if I needed to carry her upstairs. I needed to be quick before the train departed again. Finally, I was on the station. It didn't take too long before heading into the lobby, and then right up the stairs. One step at a time, I ascended with great effort. I managed. Panting on the halfway mark, I remained there for several moments before resuming my track. Finally, I was at the top. I quickly spied a bed and deposited her, with all the care in the world. Ugh, it would have been easier with someone else, but that would be kind of hard right now. Our entire group is somewhat dysfunctional. What a mess. I repeated the words I'd said before taking the train. For some reason, it helped me cope with it. Hey, what now? I got rid of the knife, so I was safe. I wanted answers, but I also wanted her to be alright first, so I could even get those answers. I went to the sink. With some paper towels in hand, I wept a lot and folded it to put on her forehead. At least this would alleviate the pain I caused her by knocking her out. Nothing to do then but wait. After a while, I remembered what Smiley said, and I quickly fixed my predicament. I attached a post-it note from one of the stacks I found in the infirmary to the doorframe at the bottom. On them was an indication to yell if they would go up, as this place was occupied by 2 already. At least this will prevent some kind of shitty tragedy. While I'd been waiting, I'd investigated the area, but I found nothing of use. Jasmine was taking a long time to come back to her senses, so I decided to examine her again. I took her temperature, but everything seemed normal. It was when I pulled my hand away that I noticed something weird. First of all, it was important to establish the fact Jasmine dyed her hair. It was not actually naturally pink. Her eyebrows were her real hair colour, brown. Normally she'd put stars in it too, just to look cute. Or maybe that was a habit she'd had when she'd been younger and she no longer had it, whatever. But what I was seeing didn't make sense. I noticed her hair sort of fall. With a hand, he curiously reached to the scalp and pulled. What was this? I could remove her hair? Underneath was more hair. Did she switch to wearing a wig instead of dyeing it? What was the point of this? That doesn't make sense. Did you try dyeing your hair another colour? What happened after I left you to attend the University of Montreal? Fucking knew I should have stayed. I squeezed my hands in fists, angry at the world. I was also angry at myself. Underneath her pink wig, her hair was blonde coloured. It wasn't brown, it wasn't pink, it was blonde. Strands couldn't lie. What the fuck happened to you, Jasmine? You dyed your hair blonde? That question, much like the previous one, was rhetorical. I had no real way of telling what happened to her, and since she was knocked unconscious, she had no way of answering me. Something was definitely wrong with this. I backed off and went downstairs to think about it. Removed the whole wig and the hair underneath was blonde. It wasn't long either. It was kept short. Maybe that was so it could fit under the wig better? Why is her hair blonde? Whose hair? Ah, I jumped back in surprise as G came out of nowhere. She'd arrived at the station while I'd been upstairs, and she surprised me by coming out from the little dark hallway with the gate. Jasmine's hair is blonde. I don't know why. It's not supposed to be blonde. Sorry, I was insensitive. Are you okay? Yeah, I'll be fine. She didn't sound fine at all. Something about her felt incredibly strange. She wasn't looking at me while talking. Instead, she was looking around the station. It's a pretty spacious place here, huh? Maybe it is. So, what did you do with your twin sister? Did you bring her somewhere? Kinda. Something was definitely wrong with G now. As she paced around a little, I pondered on what I should do. This small lapse of attention would prove to be a mistake. As soon as I showed any sign of detachment, G suddenly shoved me backwards. What? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sis. I did it just for you. Now I can be with you. I heard those words as my world fell upside down. I fell into the space between the stations. Sister's dead. As soon as I spoke, I knew it was over. I landed right onto the tracks, and a strong electric current instantly killed me among waves of pain. And then darkness greeted me like an old friend. Electrified bad end. Ooh, but I got a lock. Intriguing. A blue, yellow, and a second green. The end is reached once again. So what did that open up? We've got interesting. So this is presumably that choice we made of either to shove her or not. So let's go and see. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So if I just go through all of this again. I'm wondering if it actually makes any... Oh, it was best to save E. At this moment I remembered Jasmine's eyes. They were crazy. They were completely out of focus. I understood then that there was no reasoning with her, but she didn't stab G earlier when she shoved the girl aside. Perhaps then G would be safe with her? Paradoxically. I didn't know what to do, so I did the most natural thing. I reached over for E. As soon as my hand wrapped around her wrists, I yanked her out of the way. Huh? What? What's going on? She quickly fell against me. I gritted my teeth upon feeling the added weight. I almost lost my footing, but I remained upright. At that moment, I figured that she wasn't any threat. She was innocent and I could trust her. My first priority was to help her, to bring her to a safe location. I saw that she also understood the fact I was no threat and could trust me. Meanwhile, Jasmine was considering the situation now that I had added myself to the equation. I had to figure something out to destabilise her further. Quickly, I took the first thing I could reach. It was the bag A gave me. It contained all the pens. Surely that would come in handy now. I unzipped it and I backed off with E. Don't come closer, because perhaps this was ridiculous. Still, I threw the pens one by one. When I came upon the E pen, I decided to leave it in the bag. Same deal for the S pen. I couldn't throw those just in case, but I was almost out of ammo. Yet that wasn't enough to deter Jasmine. I was almost at the staircase. Just throw one more at her. Right, the bag itself. I plucked the last 2 pens out, flung those, and then lobbed the bag at her face, which made her hesitate. That was enough. I sprinted out of the room with E in tow. Oof. I ran for it. We almost tripped down the stairs in our hurry. In that moment I had a passing thought for the leftover twin, but as I figured out earlier, maybe she would be fine. I just had to hope that was the case, just as I was hoping for the train to arrive quickly. If Jasmine got her bearings back and barreled down the stairs, there would be nothing stopping her from... It was quiet, so I exhaled a breath I didn't know I still held. She wasn't coming down. Perhaps G was... I shook my head. I knew I shouldn't have thought about it. I knew that I might have left the twin to die, but I had no choice. I clenched my teeth and I realised that choice still perhaps condemned one of them. The train arrived. As soon as the doors opened, we boarded it. As soon as we entered, the train departed. We were going towards the north side. I hadn't picked which staircase I went down to, because I didn't have the state of mind to think about it. Perhaps I should have thought about it more. Where are we going? What was that event? Unfortunately, I had no means to communicate with her. So I had to think of something else. I tapped onto her hand as if to comfort her. Ah, well, whatever it wasn't good, huh? But at least we're good now. I don't know if you're writing something, so poke my hand once if yes, and twice if no. I poked her hand twice. Oh, did you run out of paper? I poked her hand twice. That was technically true. It was just in the bag. Something else must be preventing you from writing. Did you lose the pens too? I poked her hand once. At least I could answer simple questions. Ah, that's really bad. Well, at least inform me of what happened like this. Is everyone okay? I poked her hand twice. They definitely weren't okay. Did people die? I hesitated. To which point did I really need to tell her the truth? No answer, huh? So I guess they did. I realised too late that my lack of response spoke for itself. I brushed the back of my head awkwardly as the train came to a stop. I looked around the station, but there was no one. The doors were open. This was already solved. Just as eagerly, the train closed its doors and ventured off again. I don't know what else to ask, and you can't ask me anything. We could take the rest of the line in silence then, is that okay? I answered by poking her hand once, even if I wanted to talk more. It was helping, but it was just like she said. I didn't know how to communicate with her without those pens. Sure, I needed the paper too, and all of them were gone with the bag. The train crossed the 2nd, 3rd and 4th station without a hitch. I figured we'd leave at the 5th one. Unfortunately, that station had its doors closed. Were Marco and Ray inside? Since leaving here was definitely one of the worst options, I didn't. Instead, I remained in the train, in silence, with E. I remained like that until we arrived at the next station. I waited a while, but it wouldn't go, so this was definitely a new station. It was perhaps the last one of the line. The announcer called it the theatre station. It's not moving anymore. Are we at a new station, then? My priority was to escort E out of here. I poked her hand once when we stood up together. Then we stood up together. The idea was, if we entered a new station, the door would close behind us. Since we had no time limit, we could wait there with the solution, refrain from entering it for several hours if needed, and we could head back out in relative safety. Then perhaps the issue would be solved. I doubted it. Yet this was the most cowardly plan I could come up with, and it was marvellous. We stepped onto the station. It immediately became apparent this choice was a foolhardy decision on my part because the door was closed. Huh? But Marco and Ray were... Did they split up? Did they split up and one went here? No, wait, the doors only closed when two collards stepped inside, didn't they? So it shouldn't be closed if just one person came. Wait, one person. I opened my mouth in silent horror at what I just thought about. Why did we never try this? Perhaps I should have checked. I should have tried entering a station alone and seen if it closed up. If it didn't, then maybe no puzzle needed to be solved that way. If we traversed them one by one, then the doors would never lock up. Or maybe that was just a trap by Smiley. Whatever the case was, I couldn't test it now. The door was closed. There was no one but me and E. The train had gone already. No other came by. I looked at the other side of the station. The door was closed too, and the space between the stations was, as I mentioned long ago, far too dangerous to cross. This was a last-ditch effort, and nothing else. Being silent for a while. Was everything fine? First, I had to comfort E. I lied by poking her hand one time. I was taking a break then. Come poke my hand when you're good to go. She smiled. That was a smile that needed protecting. I thought I could do it. It was my task. First order of business, check out the door. Or I could check everything else first too. Perhaps something or another way... Something or other would be another way out. Yeah. Myself another drink. Yeah. I closed my blinds. There's lights on my screen. Little sequel over here. Fun. Oh god, it's really freaking out there. Right. Quick neck again, just to make sure. Okay, we are good, we are okay. So, let's have a look. My steps were blocked after only a few in this encroaching darkness. The reason was simple, there was a big gate. Unless I could cut myself into pieces, I wouldn't make it through there. I could have done that if I had a knife, but I wouldn't be alive anymore, which would be counterproductive to the goal. Even if someone picked up the little cubes that made me and put them back together, I wouldn't be fine on the other side. That sign wouldn't stop me, because I couldn't read. Well, no, I could read, but there was no one around who could enforce this sign. Still, the sign itself would be of no use to me. No secret passages behind this television screen. It was as flat as my mood, or as flat as the Earth, if I believed the Earth was flat, which I didn't. Or it was as flat as a bratty anime girl. Perhaps it even was as flat as these comparisons. I tried to find a way to open one of the plates. They were affixed to the wall with large bolts, but surely there was a way to get them off. I tried with all my might, but there was no way they were opening up. If Ray couldn't have done it, then I sure as hell didn't stand a chance. The door was closed. I tried peeking through the window. Inside was a bunch of rubble. What was that all about? I tried and I tried, but I couldn't open it. There was no handle. There was nothing. There was nothing I could do to get it open up. Even the window in the door was as thick as the door. It didn't break even when I threw my strongest punch. I had to accept we were trapped here. I decided against informing E for now. Instead I waited. Maybe some help would come. That was what I thought. Against the wall, I slid to the ground and sat waiting. The help did not come. Nothing happened. It felt like an eternity passed us by as we waited for help that never came. I stood up and decided it was time for the last-ditch effort. If I could reach the other side of the platform, another train would arrive and take us away. That was why I prepared myself for it. I backed up, looked at E still serene, waiting for help as well, and I moved forward, confident in my take. I wouldn't get to make that first step in the dangerous abyss between the stations, however. As soon as I made up my mind, darkness greeted me. Did I pass out? Did the lights simply turn off? No. It was stranger than that. It was as if I was floating in darkness. I couldn't feel my body. There was only darkness. Excuse me? Abyss Baron. Excuse me? What the hell was that? Excuse me? I am monumentally confused. But that's everything that's there. Okay. That happened. Just randomly die. Just randomly, Okay. 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 I'm not quite sure what to make of that. But I'm slightly curious, actually, what happens if we go here and try... I'm assuming we get stopped by the lock, but I'm just going to skip through until we get to the choice. I assume we get stopped by the lock, but if we try doing that... I didn't know when Agnos would catch up to us, and there was only one course of action that came to mind. Instead of doing anything with the gun, I decided I needed to get to the core of this problem. I had to get to the laboratory as soon as possible. The main problem was my identity. Agnos was so convinced that by killing everyone he'd get Smiley. If only I could convince him otherwise, then he'd spare me at least. It didn't absolve him of his crimes. I planned to bring him to justice as soon as I was out of here, but I needed him to drop the case. The chase. Not case, chase. With that thought, I took the train as soon as it arrived. We arrived at the laboratory without a hitch. There were no signs of Agnos either. Weird, given he was here when we did the other route. This was a good thing, because if he'd been here, he would have gotten in the way. Worse, he could trigger the punishment for entering the station with more than 2 people by mistake. This would definitely be the worst outcome for everyone involved. I still had no idea how to open the door, but having felt the back of the remote, I noticed there was something there. Now that I wasn't in a rush to get here, I examined the little studs. They formed rectangular patterns. I knew this. It was Braille. How lucky that he's still here and alive, I exclaimed to myself, half sarcastic. True, it was still lucky. In fact, perhaps too lucky. I took a moment to think about what this meant. Agnos hadn't really gunned for her. Of course, he'd known about the Braille. That's why he needed her alive. But that's only if he cares about breaking his way into here, assuming the Braille is even for that. No, wait, he could read it, wouldn't he? I assume that he knows how to talk to E and stuff. This was giving me a headache again, so I decided to stop trying to understand what went through his head. Even worse, I had an even bigger headache when holding the remote. E held my other hand. I pulled it from her, which thankfully didn't make her panic. I needed both my hands free to write her a message. I only had one piece of paper left. I handed it to her along with the remote. You want me to touch the remote and tell you what's written on it? I can do that, but are we near an exit? She paused, figuring that I would answer. When I didn't, she lost a bit of her composure. If we're near an exit, can't we just leave? I obviously knew otherwise. But even if I knew otherwise, there was a part of me that said I could go right now. Like this, things were fine. As if I knew the solution to the exit already. Okay, well on this remote it says, reverse me to open the way in and forgive me for... Reverse me to open... I'm just noting this down. The way in and give me 4. Forgive me for what? I don't understand. I didn't understand either. I plucked the remote from her as calmly as I could. Looking at it, I realised I could enter 5 letters into it. 5 letters. I didn't know what this meant, but somewhere there was some sort of password. All I needed to do was figure it out. Simple, right? 5 letters. 1 password. I thought about it, but I just couldn't figure it out. To be continued. Okay, so we just get to be continued there. We don't get anything else. As long as you do not know the letters, Simon will be unable to crack this code. Without them, this is not a true ending. Okay, so that's where we get stuck because of the lock. So I guess we just need to go for orange or yellow. I have a feeling, I don't know. Once we actually get to the branches, everything seems a bit short. So let's go orange. I'm guessing these are the 2 twins paths, but let's talk to twin. I came by H, who was with E. The former was trying to make the girl react by doing a bunch of waving movements in front of her face, but E wasn't reacting at all, naturally. What are you doing? That's extremely rude. Is it? You can't even see me, so she doesn't know what I'm doing. To her, I'm not doing anything. That's right, but we can see you. At least I can, since everyone else is too busy. Do you care, then? I want to tell her something, but I can't. Disabilities are dumb, and all of them should go away. I hate them all. Well, okay. It's not so simple, but I do have a way to talk to her. The old man gave me these pens that can write letters in Braille. As soon as I showed her the pens, she snatched them along with a piece of paper. Hey, wait, I wasn't done explaining. We don't have the time, so just give me like 1 sec. Well, girl quickly wrote something before stuffing the pens back into my bag. She gave E the paper, though E looked more and more puzzled the more she read her hands upon it. I don't really understand what you're saying, sir. What? All these pens would... Hey, calm down. There's a way to use these pens that I didn't have the time to explain. I glanced over at the rest of the group. Apparently they'd finished opening the door. Whatever you have to ask her, we'll have to wait until later. We've got the door open now. Later, more like never. I'm sure I asked her correctly. I guess she just didn't want to answer, and that's fine, but I don't like that. The twin grabbed E's hand and pulled her along. The poor blind girl followed, uncertain of where she was going. Putting my hands in my pockets, I followed along too. Together, we all stepped into the little lobby beyond the station. Oh, this is back to... get the skipping. I just go straight. Wait, young man. Before we go, you might be better off discussing our findings. We might be better off discussing our findings and strategize accordingly for our next move. Did we find anything special or something? Not much, I'm afraid. It doesn't seem as though this room even has a way out like the stations we explored. Maybe this is set up here so we have to come back here every time. Do you think so? I thought this place was a little homely. We should consider this our base of operations for whenever we solve an escape room. That seems like a good idea. Let's make our way back here to report our findings every time we get out of the station then. Ray grumbled something. He didn't seem in agreement, but instead of replying to their words, he simply drank from his flask once again. That reminded me there was a bar counter here. I'm awfully thirsty. Let's go for a drink. Just what I was thinking. Nothing in here that has a price tag, so I guess it's free. Are you two willing to get drunk now? That's so irresponsible. I can't believe you're both like that. We should just rest before heading out. We need all our focus. Hey, not really getting drunk, just, you know, having a sip. Gotta get some sip. Just a sip. Do not worry, Jay. I'll make sure any drink I prepare will not be cause for concern. And who named you the resident barkeep? Oh ho ho, but young man, I happen to be a bit of a barrister. I made that mistake before. This is a bit we've already seen, at least partially. I'm just gonna... This is a conversation we definitely had before. Oh, okay. This is something new, I think. This brought me back to the note Ray showed us. Someone who didn't belong. Like... terrorist. Like Jasmine said, it was easy to dismiss it as some kind of scare. Perhaps it was what it was, but I couldn't be sure. Did I really think that was the case? Did I think the message was important? Simon believed the note was important. So I find it a bit odd how basically all of... Oh god. Cameras. Alright. We've got some sunlight right on the camera. And so it's not really tracking me properly anymore. Okay. That is... okay for me. Right, moving things around. Damn you, son. Damn you. Being in the wrong place. Making my camera not work properly. Making it hard for me to read my screen. I've drawn my blind, but there's still a bit getting through. Yeah, well. It's what it is. There was a part of me that just couldn't let go of the paper with the mysterious message. Why in fact would it be here if it wasn't important? Or maybe this is like Ray route or something? Let's go romance Ray. That sounds like a good idea. Oh dear. Why in fact would it be here if it wasn't important? This entire place was far too meticulously built to leave in something random without reason. I couldn't afford to get teamed up with the one that didn't belong, or perhaps I should have aimed for that. If I was with them, perhaps they could get me out of here. The situation was more difficult than simply escaping. I had to escape, yes, but with my friends. What I needed was information. I had to talk to somebody. I did have a lot of choices right now. There was the old man behind the counter. He might have been knowledgeable about it. Oh, alright. Just gonna be back in a second. Let me mute. Okay, we are back. Sorry about that. Something happening outside. Don't know what exactly that was all about, but whatever. There was the old man behind the counter. He might be knowledgeable about it. Then there was the twin next to me. I could also talk to the strange girl E, who might have known more than she appeared to. I disregarded Marco, though. He was either very deep in thought or on a date with his drink, or both. It wouldn't be helpful to always only rely on what my friends thought. That eliminated Jasmine and Marco to begin with, but I figured if they were talking to G, H would unscrew my head. If I went talk to G, H would unscrew my head, so I dropped that idea too. I probably only had time to talk to one of them, since I bet they were getting antsy to head out shortly. It would be between the old man, Ray, H, and the strange girl. E is the most interesting of them so far. I was curious about what E's stakes were in all this, but I didn't want to ask her directly. Yet I had no other way, since my means of communication with her was already very limited. I took a piece of paper and started writing with the pens. Once I made a few questions in advance, I joined her and notified her I wanted to talk by giving her a shoulder tap. Oh, who's there? Did you want anything? Since I didn't greet her like A, I figured she must have been confused about who I was. Quickly I wrote my name on the first questions piece of paper too. Oh, it's you. Let's see, you want to know more about my disabilities? My first question has to do with how she came to be blind and deaf. Perhaps a little indiscreet, but I had to take every possible lead. I don't mind talking about them. It was a difficult experience though, so please bear with me. It happened half a year ago. I was alone at home. I was taking care of my laundry when everything went dark. I passed out somehow, and to this day I've yet to know exactly why. When I came to my senses, I felt pain everywhere. I remember sitting in a chair with a terrible headache. I couldn't scream for help because I was bound with a gag. 3 men with lab coats approached me once they saw I was awake. They put me through several tests and checked my vitals. There were no words exchanged, and they only watched me. Okay. This is getting more and more weird. I was kept there for weeks and had no choice in the matter. They wanted to see... What did they want to see again? It's hard to remember that part. Something about science. They wanted to test someone whose senses were removed. I only remember that. Then they did that. They removed some of my parts. My stomach churned a little. I felt sick at that revelation. They removed her organs, her eyes and her ears. They were just gone? The headphones I wear and the blindfold I have aren't normal. They're both made to perhaps recover my senses. You could think of them as 3D printers. They reminded me of the pens. I glanced towards A. Did he have an involvement in her recovery? After all, they did greet us together earlier. Perhaps this was likely? It may sound ludicrous, but I assure you it is the truth. I hope that can satisfy your curiosity. She smiled. Despite it all, she didn't abandon her optimism. While turning to take another piece of paper, I dropped the lot onto the ground in my hurry. Damn it. I moved as quickly as I could to recover the messages and ask her, though it took a while. By the time I was back up, E had already gone, feeling her way to couches. Further interrogation would have to wait for a later time. In the end, I didn't figure out exactly what I wanted to know. Just then, I heard a sound nearby. Something like... Oh dear. Someone falling down onto the ground. Either someone's drunk or someone's about to die horribly. So, I took a glance around me and I noticed Marco fell off his seat. Are you okay? He definitely wasn't, but this was a formality. Our resident barista ran over to our side of the counter, taking a close look at the boy. Allergy to coconuts, perhaps? This is an anaphylactic reaction. I need to take him to some sort of hospital quickly or else he's going to suffocate. Quick, someone help me. Ray pushed us out of the way in a surprising show of altruism. He grabbed the boy and effortlessly lifted him into his arms. Yeah, words. Yeah, to the train then, let's go. Wait, you don't know where you're going. We found this stuff earlier. She took out a somewhat large pile of folded papers she'd carried in her pocket. Unfolding it, she revealed they were maps for the station. Look, one of them is an infirmary. You go through there and then stop there. Let's go quickly then or he's going to die. Whatever, old man. But he knew specifically it was a coconut allergy. It was mentioned in one of the previous lines, but I don't think it was mentioned here. Unless it was in the... I don't know. If it was mentioned here, then good job, old man. You killed a guy. Accidentally. Or was it an accident? Who knows? The two of them took off. Jasmine looked at me. Then she panicked, realising something I'd yet to understand about our predicament. Oh no, we have to head there too. Remember what Smiley said, the train will only stop at a station that hasn't been done yet. They can't make it to the infirmary because the stations on the way aren't occupied or solved. If teams don't disembark at those, A, Ray, and M will be stuck before they can help M. Quickly, we all hurried after them. I had the decency of also taking hold of E's hand to pull her along. Eh? Where are we going this quickly? Did something happen? I had no time to explain, and I was the only one who could help her down the stairs. I had to be quick or I would miss the train. Then we arrived at the little lobby, and from the opening I could tell the train had just arrived. I felt apologetic to E, but I really couldn't stop. If we didn't get in there... Quickly I ran through the station. Jasmine kept an arm out to try and see if the doors would remain open that way, but I doubted they would. If Smiley installed a death collar on us, then this contraption would have severed our arms without a second thought. Finally we made it in. I panted, letting go of Eve, and quickly put her hands on any nearby surface to reorient herself. She made her way to a seat, and after making sure no one else was there, she dropped onto it. We made it, all in. I noticed the twins were there too, and so was Jasmine. Shortly, the train closed its doors. Finally, we were off again. We're going to the other side this time, huh? I guess it was a bit out of our control. Anyway, we have 2 stations to stop at. First is the security room, and the other is the laboratory. Yeah. Who's going where? We've got a security room, a laboratory, an infirmary. That one's for A&M, and a gym. Like, fitness. The train was already inbound to the first station. Very soon it arrived and stopped all movement. Quickly, the more we wait, the more danger M will be in. Who will go? What are our teams like? I think the twins might get together again. Before my suggestion brought any reactions, Ray walked back in from the other compartment. We need someone to get her. I'll go. Okay, first. Oh, okay, that solves that. With who, though? He cast a glance at me. Was I really going to sacrifice myself like this? No, I couldn't. If A would go with Marco since he needed to bring him to the infirmary, I was the only one left who could go with E. Disregarding our hesitation, Ray stepped towards the girls. I'll go with her. Hey, let go! Very quickly he stepped backwards towards the door. Jasmine moved forward as if to stop him, but he quickly stopped her in the tracks when the click of a certain metallic object made it clear he wasn't joking. That escalated quickly. That escalated very quickly. What the freak? The man had a gun, and it was trained right at us. His strength alone could keep the girl in check. This was just his insurance. Where do people keep getting guns from? What? Shut up and stop gesticulating. You're coming with me. You and your twin are super suspicious. Can I just say as well, the CGs look so different from the sprites. It's like, oh, you can tell which character's which and things, but like, yeah, it's just I think it's mainly the faces. Just the style looks really different for some reason. I don't know. It's a bit odd. You're coming with me. You and your twin are super suspicious. We got to find someone who isn't like the others, huh? The chances of us landing here with identical twins are abysmally low. If I had to guess, then one of you is who we're looking for. You know, Crater. Whoa, hey, don't move now. He reaffirmed his hold against H's body, squeezing her tighter with his strong arm. The man had caught G, taking a step forward to defy him. Don't do anything you might fucking regret, okay? Let go of her. She's not like that, I swear. It's not the one you're looking for. What's that? Are you then? Heard you both say something about a traitor to each other earlier. Of course not, you idiot. Neither of us is who you're looking for. Stupid maniac. Let go, I'll kick you in the nuts. Oh dear. But no matter how much she swung her legs, every hit missed. It almost felt like she was missing him on purpose. Perhaps she didn't want to actually trigger him to pull the gun on her. Perhaps she was only doing this as a token show of resistance. I closed my hands into fists and inhaled, then exhaled. I wasn't going to go and pull her out of his grip. That would be too dangerous. Jasmine was just as angry and powerless as I was. When Ray stepped out, following our inaction, She lunged forward. Ray aimed at her. No, I screamed just as H screamed too. G's screams jolted the cacophony, and I almost lost my footing with sudden noise erupting around me. I pulled Jasmine back into the train, though. A shot had fired from the gun, though it was difficult to tell if she'd been hit. I quickly took a look at her as we fell in a heap. The bullet wasn't in her. I looked at the ceiling. The bullet wasn't even in the train either. A quick glance at Ray told me he'd fired it in the air as a warning shot. We gotta leave in pairs, so don't fuck with me. And you want to know where I found this guy, Bet? Before you accuse me of doing some bad shit, you should. But his monologue was interrupted by the doors closing behind him when we stepped through the doorframe at the end of the station. He kept gesticulating before H suddenly bit his hand. By the time he let go of her, it was already too late. The train was driving off. I was left alone with Jasmine, who was standing up, G, who was frightened and looking extremely perturbed, and E, who was as normal as usual. It's okay. All we can do is hope that he sticks to his word. What did he say at the end? What should we do about? What should we do about what? I don't know. I couldn't hear. Did you? I asked G, but it was useless. The girl was sobbing. I wasn't too good with this, so I left Jasmine to handle it. Our teams were pretty much decided anyway. I'll go fill E in on what just happened. You take care of G, okay? Yeah, that's the plan. It's okay. We'll get your sister back. I also glanced over at Marco and A in the other compartment. The old man was standing up slowly, apparently having been knocked unconscious before. Did Ray? I shook my head. That man's actions couldn't be condoned, but I had something to do. The next long minutes I spent them explaining everything to E. That's horrible. I hope she'll be okay. That man is a jerk. I don't think he really cared about what we thought at this point. No, he doesn't seem that way. She couldn't see me, and we had to search rooms again. This was going to be strange. Before I knew it, Jasmine and the twin left, and then Marco and A left too. I also hoped Marco would be fine. It had taken a while to get to the station, so if he was treated now, perhaps it might be too late. I cringed, clenching my teeth together hard. I couldn't allow myself to think about the worst-case scenarios. So presumably Ray stole the gun from Agnos? Presumably? I don't know. Finally, we arrived at our destination. I took E's hand again. We're there, huh? Let's go. We stepped outside. Mechanically, we wandered to the open doorway. We only had one thing to do, so we stepped into the lobby. Very shortly, the doors closed behind us. How many times would we have to do this anyway? I calculated we would run out of stations in 2, maybe 3 outings. As if those maps were all we had access to, at least. I guided E up the stairs. It was a tiny hallway, and the first room I poked my head in was entirely different from the one I had found before with Marco. It was a fitness room, but it also had a gymnasium attached to it. Or was it the reverse? I relayed this information to E. So we're back here now to actually solve it. A gymnasium. I always wanted to go to one of those. Not that I really can anymore. It's not really my kind of thing anyway, so I'm not very fit. I can't see you, but I bet you probably went to some in the past, huh? She was giving me a compliment, wasn't she? It was a little awkward since I could only reply quickly. I did want to tell her she looked pretty fit, but I chose to withhold even if she was cute. Jasmine would probably have hit me if she'd heard my thoughts. It was time to focus on this room. I mean, dude, if you want to switch waifu, given what we've seen so far, yeah, he does seem like a better choice than Jasmine right about now. I mean, only one of them has tried to murder you, so, well, I suppose not so much you specifically, but you know. Before I could do much, I saw E trying to feel her way around the room. She must have understood this place was very spacious, and she had a lot of free ground to tread, even if most of it was empty. Still, I didn't want her to hurt herself by mistake, like by walking into a wall, for example, so I reached out to her wrist and grabbed it. Are you concerned about me? It's okay. I can feel the air, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like this place is very empty and spacious. But I guess I can understand your concern. If you want to, lead me somewhere I can be useful and I'll stay there. And if you need anything touched or felt, I can probably do that better than most. There was something weird about her proposal. Not weird, but weird like uncomfortably weird. She must have sensed my unease as she corrected herself. I mean, if you find anything that has to be manipulated or can be held, I'd be good at that. And for what it's worth too, I'm rather slim, so I wrote to interrupt her in her thoughts. Do you mean, are you trying to flirt? Aren't we all flirting with fate? What? I could tell by her tone she wasn't taking this seriously. Really? You think she's being serious about that? Well, guess I can start by giving her some sort of task. Crack the code. I'm still wondering if the shapes in people's pupils are meant to mean something specific, because, like, I don't know, they all seem to have very different shapes. Right. I walked up to the ball and felt it in my hands. Strangely enough, the surface was, like, very rough. It isn't a normal basketball. There are nubs all over it, but I can't figure out what it means. In fact, they aren't evenly spaced either. I picked up my paper and handed the ball to E. I explained to her that maybe there was something for her to do in here in the end. Oh, nice. A big ball, huh? You want me to touch your ball? I rubbed the back of my head. Why did she always say it in the strangest way possible? It's pretty big. I don't know if I can hold something like that properly. I rubbed the back of my head harder. Why did she always put it in the strangest way possible? Maybe if I use both hands, I can squeeze it better. Oh, it's very firm. I hastily wrote onto a piece of paper, E, no. Oh, you just want me to know what's up with the surface? I'll examine it. Check back on me after a bit and I should have this figured out. Girl, you didn't know what you could do to a boy. Maybe she did. Waggles eyebrows furiously. Are my eyebrows waggling? A bit. There we go. Waggle. There we go. I guess we just want to look around everything. Nothing beyond there except the bathrooms. Does every station here have bathrooms? It's nice to think that Smiley cared enough to do all that plumbing for us, because toilets are linked with pipes and whatever, right? I still can't wrap my head around all of this. Oh yes, the safe. It's a safe. It's safely locked. Pretty simple. Would you care to tell us how it's locked? I mean, I'm assuming that's a number pad. Hey. Anyone there? We're here. Help! I waved my hands at the window up above, but as the darkness indicated, there was no one in there, and perhaps it had been a tinted window. No, the likeliest explanation was that there was nothing behind those windows. No matter how much I looked inside, it was pitch black, as if a wall had been placed right behind the windows. And they were painted black. Ceci n'est pas une fenêtre. Ah. Window instead of pipe. I forget where that's from. Like, I vaguely recognise the quote. Oh, it's the... This is not a pipe, it's a picture of a pipe. That thing, right, yes. Okay. Those things are probably used for, I don't know, maybe to keep score? Like a scoreboard. Or maybe they're only here to look fancy and give the space flavour. Something. What did it say? A bit more flair. I need to stop looking through things too fast. According to what was written on the flags, they were given to a bunch of high school teams. One of them was for the Lions, one of them was for the Wolves, one was for the Eagles, and one for the Rabbits. They're saying to call back, is it? Wait, no, Eagles wasn't. Eagles wasn't. Birthday code. The others all were. Lions, wolves, eagles, and rabbits. Out of all of those, I swear the wolves sound the most dangerous. Who would cheer for the rabbits? I don't know. I'd say lions are... If you have the same number, lions are more dangerous than wolves. Wolves are more awesome, though, so, you know, gotta give them that. Strange. This thing is pretty high. I forgot, are the baskets supposed to be higher or lower than this? I wonder if this is legal. I looked around the pole, but given how high the door is, I wouldn't say it's that high. I looked around the pole, but I didn't see anything particularly different. However, when I made my way behind it, there was something indicated on the back of the rectangular plate. Squares are 3. I'm going to start taking some notes. Squares are 3. What does that mean? Squares have 4 sides. Surely this has another meaning that would only make sense once I found other stuff. That's how escape rooms work, right? These floor lines are placed here to delineate borders of some games. Painting those things on the ground ought to be an annoying job. They sometimes use duct tape because... Why did I say duct tape? I'm making up words again. They sometimes use tape because the paint would go away, but I guess it doesn't matter in here since nobody would use this place. It looks more like a replica of another location. Unless the people who built all this wanted to dunk on each other between sessions of rearrangement. I know for a fact that I'd dunk on Marco if he was here. But he? I cast a glance at her. I don't dunk on E. Okay. I glanced inside of that space. Something about it was nagging at me. The rack held 3 different kinds of dumbbells. Their ends were made of 3 different shapes: circle, square, and triangle. The top level had 5 circle dumbbells. 5 circles. 2 squares. And 3 triangles. What could this mean? It's clearly important. The door was locked. It reminded me of the doors from the station a little, but instead of a lock it only had a keypad. Different kinds of keys were needed to unlock both. Numbers. Why is everything numbers? Numbers on our collars, numbers for these passwords, bathrooms when you do number 1 or number 2, and the biggest number of all, Marco himself, a complete digit. I ruffled my hair a little. This door wouldn't open yet. Well, I came by E again after leaving her with my ball for a while. Well, let's put it that way. Why not? The surface of the spherical object is very intriguing. In fact, I would even say it's not a regular basketball. I could feel the lines across the surface, but there were also all sorts of little nubs poking out of it. And if I crossed the surface with my fingers, I could read 2 things because these things are Braille. And it says that circle is second. Circle. I don't know what that means, but perhaps that can help you. I acknowledged her help with another piece of paper. She looked overjoyed. Amazing. I'm so glad to have helped with your ball issue. If you don't mind though, I want to keep it in my hands. I vacated the immediate area to focus on a way to leave this place before this girl ended me. I put together what I knew of the shapes and numbers so far. According to the 2 numbers I found, I determined the 3rd. Those shapes were like the dumbbells, and of course, even if there were 3 numbers, as there were 3 shapes of dumbbells, knowing 2 of them allowed me to unlock the same cell door. The 3rd one would definitely go in the leftover spot. Crap, that's not enough. What have I missed? There must have been a 4th number somewhere. Assuming 5, 2, and 3 were the only numbers, and I knew where 2 of them would go, and since I never found anything for a 4th spot, 0 is a number 2. That must go in the 4th spot. And there we go. Code was 352I. Would you let me figure this out myself, please? Oh dear. I wonder how realistic it would be to brute force this if you figured out that the code was only made of 4 numbers. I mean, you want to try 1,000 different combinations? Because that's how you try 1,000 different combinations. And I suppose if you knew that you had to use the dumbbells, then that would be one thing, but from afar I could see the dumbbells, but from up close I realised they weren't real. There was no real weight to them, but they were glued to the rack as if they weren't meant to be taken out. Makes sense, this was already used, so no point to it now. Each of these lockers was interesting. With the doors open, they gave me a sequence of 8 numbers written across the inside of the doors. Of course, the actual lockers themselves are pretty useless. Wait, this doesn't tell me the sequence to put those numbers in. Damn it. There had to be something else to do here. After a few moments I found there was yet another object hidden between the 2 halves of the lockers, between the 4th and the 5th ones. Sliding puzzle. I hate those so much. Hey wait, the surface is kind of 3D. I wonder if I gave the object to E after joining her at her current location. Do you want me to mess with this? I didn't even need to answer for her to start toying with it. She was so reliable when we didn't need to take 5 million years to communicate one sentence. This might take me a while. Check in with me again later. So again, I continue with my slight frustration that a lot of, I was literally writing the notes to be like, oh, they're finally going to let me work out what the passcode is. No, it just tells me. It just says, yeah, I'm just gonna answer. There, I did it. She spoke aloud when she was finished with the sliding puzzle. It opened, letting a piece of paper fall onto the ground. I grabbed it and read its contents. Wait, what is this? This is a diagram of a compass with the numbers on it. There's also a riddle of some kind. It says EnWSWNENWSE. And then it's got a bunch of directives to follow. According to this diagram, north, east, west, and south are the 1st, 2nd, and 4th lockers. Okay, north is 1, south is 8, east is 3, west is... I took note of all the directions and their corresponding numbers. And then the directives asked me to remove a bunch of them from the lineup. No, this gives me east, north, south, east, north, south, east. Those would be 2, 8, 2, 8, 3, but that doesn't work. It's probably backwards because you refer to northeast, not east-north. I asked E about what she thought was wrong. I needed to translate the entire directives over, but eventually she giggled at me. What was so funny? Oh, you're a silly boy, S. Don't you see what's wrong with this decision? We're trying east-north, but no one has ever said it like that. Usually it's northeast, right? I think you need to reform your pairs better. She was right. East-north was pretty dumb. And the answer became east-south, northeast, southeast, which translated to 38283. Now, what is this for, I wonder? Again, this is frustrating. The fact that it's like, here are all these puzzles that we're going to tell you about and not actually let you solve. I entered the code into this wide safe, 38283, and it worked. The safe came open. Great, we're out of here, assuming this is the end of it. I opened it and then instantly froze up, closing it again in surprise. Inside the locker was a gun. Another one. Another one. Okay. Did Smiley put this in there so things would spiral out of control? There was no way anyone would keep this on themselves after finding it. I looked at E while feeling strangely uneasy. I opened the safe again and saw there was a code written on the back. It was just another bunch of numbers, but this seemed as though it was our key out of here. Hey, you're still there, right? Have you found anything else? I shivered in reluctance. How could I tell her that I had found something else? Yes, it was nothing we should ever have to come into contact with. There was a gun in there. A fucking gun. I definitely couldn't bring myself to use this. No way. No fucking way. But I also couldn't let anyone else find it. Wouldn't it be stupid if I left it here and then somehow Ray came into contact with it? Well, he's already got one, so you know, unless he's going to dual-wield guns. Which, well, it would look badass, would be highly ineffective. Silence. I hope you're still there. I have something to talk about that I just thought up. It's kind of related to my studies back when I was still at the university. This was somewhat interesting, so I chased the thought of the gun from my mind for a bit. Do you have a feeling like you were solving all of this really easily? Like if you'd been given a set of blueprints and followed what was on them without really looking at useless stuff? I felt that way with the puzzle I had to solve. I didn't see it, of course, but I still solved it very fast. I could feel the puzzle, sure, but normally it would have taken me much longer to have an idea of what it was even about. So my studies dealt with thought processes and that kind of thing. Yes, I am getting frustrated over the fact that you're not letting me solve any puzzles. Is this going to be a plot point? I feel like it's going to be a plot point now. You know how thoughts are very complicated, but in essence they're kind of like a transmission of data between the senses and the brain. That's a mind, in extremely, extremely simple terms. And you know how that data could theoretically be manipulated or sent, or even received. You know about computers, I'm sure. It's a little like cloud technology. When using that, everything gets saved somewhere in the cloud, and then anything that has access to the cloud can pull from it. Due to that, I was wondering, is it possible that we are pulling from the same kind of cloud, and especially in my case, since my senses are disabled? I have no recourse but to try really hard otherwise, so maybe my senses are disabled so I'm forced to pull from the cloud. If I'm given no choice, I either both fail and get no information, or I succeed and... You motioned at the solved puzzle she still held, essentially forcing me to pull from it. I knew what she meant. So far I had felt this a little yes, but I couldn't let myself get caught up in that thought. If this was the code to unlock the doors below, we were free for now. I wrote to her to explain the situation. Oh, we're done already. I hope the talk was nice at least, and you know, I wonder what this all means. And if any of this is true, what is being transmitted, from where, and why? I had to follow her example. She was still positive and happy despite all that's happened to her, and she was smart too. I went to unlock all the doors and made my way back to the safe, but before we went I had this to consider, this gun. I had to take it. Despite my decision, I hesitated slightly. This was still a gun. I knew I had no choice despite that fact, because Ray was out there and he similarly possessed one of those. I wondered, did Ray find it in one of those escape rooms too? Were they planted here to make us fight each other? If that's the case, boy am I glad I found this one before anyone else did. Deciding that had been enough time wasted, I snatched it up and stuffed it into the bag the old man gave me. As I went to fetch E again, I thought at least I had a way to hide it. As long as nobody checked it, the bag would conceal the firearm. I took her down to the little lobby. Since the doors were unlocked, we could step forward and back to the station. It was time to give our farewells to this area. We had plenty of time to do that because the train didn't come by for a little bit. I decided to cut those farewells short and instead grab some pens out. I needed to notify E of what I had in mind. Huh? You're going to confront Ray? But isn't that dangerous? I reassured her with another message. How did we get into this situation? This doesn't seem right. I wordlessly agreed with her in my head. She was right. None of this was correct. The stations weren't right, the participants were all mismatched. Even the trains were somehow different. And yet now that I thought about it, we always usually rode the same train. They took a long time to travel through the entire line. They were long enough to make it last around an hour from start to end. And so then, why did we always wait so much? Were there multiple trains after all? What if this place was cut off from the main subway? Does that make sense? Unfortunately, before I could really form up some kind of idea about this place, the train arrived. I took E's hand again and stepped forward. The whole time she had been silent, perhaps as pensive as I'd been. As the train departed, I thought I should ask her input sometime. Oof. I'm now just kind of wondering about the whole multi-floor thing that we saw earlier. I'm wondering if this is going to be like, there's multiple floors and you're somehow mentally communicating with the other versions of you on these other floors. Like there's copies of them, or maybe each one of these that we're playing through is like a different floor as the idea. Maybe, I don't know. As the train departed, I thought I should ask for her input sometime. Maybe she would have figured something out. Stations came by. The train stopped at each of them, but this time around there was not a single soul ready to board the train along with us. On the way between the penultimate station before the lounge and the lounge itself, I realised that I could have made full use of this time by asking E's opinions during our travels. I'd wasted some time. I also felt tired, so ultimately I didn't know if I really wanted to proceed with that. Let's find out what E has to say. I quickly grabbed a strip of paper and wrote my question to her. All it asked was about her thoughts on why the train took so long to arrive every time we used it. Oh, I didn't know about that. I mean, I did feel like the train was taking a while, but you're also saying whenever you take the train, you usually end up travelling with another team of two. I included that part of the message too. It had happened before already. Chances of that happening were null on the normal metro system. If you didn't specifically come with someone, chances are you'd miss each other. What's the likeliest scenario, I wonder? Maybe there's only one train? Smiley is alone, right? I mean, he can't really know that. We can't really know that, but if you were just one person, what's easier to take over? One train and one coloured line, or multiple trains in the entire metro? So maybe it's just one train. That means Smiley may not be operating on a large scale, huh? The train slowed down just as our discussion came to a halt. I like how they're still assuming that it's taking over the normal metro and this isn't just some copy somewhere else. Like, I mean, how long would it take to re-kit the entire place? Like, probably long enough that someone would notice. Soon the train stopped its movements. I snagged E's hand again. I didn't really want to pull her along everywhere since it felt sort of patronising in a way. I didn't have a choice, unfortunately. And we're off. She followed me into the lobby. For a moment I expected the door to close behind us, but I remembered this wasn't one of those escape rooms. Finally we went up the stairs. Because I had to explore an entire room with E, who was less active than the others, I expected someone else to have come in before us, yet no one was here, and there were no traces of anyone coming since our departure either. I shared that thought with E, who simply nodded and quietly sat down onto one of the couches. There was nothing to do but wait. Again, the thought of the trains taking a while went through my head. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes followed. After 20, I felt a little antsy. Gotta do something. I'm going insane waiting here doing nothing. Maybe take a walk? No, maybe just take the train and go somewhere. With or without E. Ah, that's right, I can't really leave her side. Okay, I'll just take a look down at the station then. Yeah, that'll be good. Nope, I'm not talking to myself at all. Annoyed, I grumbled something unintelligible even to myself while writing another message on a piece of paper, and I gave it to E. I was telling her I was taking a small walk around the station, so I wouldn't be there for a bit. She acknowledged it, and I took off. Something didn't feel right. While walking down to the lobby below, I reached for my pocket. There was my cap. I could put it on to feel more secure. Instead, I shook my head. I hated wearing the damn thing too much. Something felt off about the situation, but not enough to warrant messing up my hair to this degree. As soon as I stepped out onto the station, I heard and saw a train arrive. Hey, who's that? I'd come down on the opposite side, so I couldn't see who came out. They were alone. Getting a bad feeling about it, I pushed my hand into the bag and grabbed the gun. Maybe... No, this was too early to tell. I ran back up the stairs. I couldn't comprehend the scene I was witnessing when I arrived there. Ray was alone, without the twin. However, he had her head. There was a head with blonde hair on the ground. Listen, right? Before you ask anything, I didn't fucking do it, okay? He brandished the gun from earlier. His finger was on the trigger. Did he not realise that was dangerous? Okay, please put the gun down. I was trembling. Regardless of what the man was saying, he might kill E like this. And then he might decide to kill everyone else to hide his crime. People's senses were addled when they drank alcohol, and what he had was just that, right? No, I ain't fucking putting it down. You know what everyone's gonna say, right? Ray, how could you kill her? I didn't. I fucking didn't. And what she did... It's what she did that killed her. It didn't take very long for me to put two and two together. Since he had her head, that meant her collar had activated. The scene was still horrifying, though. Even knowing what might be the truth. You know this is super, super serious, right? Of course I fucking know. And put the gun down if you're genuine about it. I ain't putting it down, fuck that. It's the only thing that stands between me and what the others will do to me when they see this. Not if they also have a weapon. Not if they take you by surprise, you murderer. The small girl had arrived out of nowhere. The train containing Jasmine and G probably came by while we were having our altercation. The girl pushed the man down to the ground with surprising strength. Yeah. You go, little girl. Because she caught him off guard, he needed a moment to get his bearings together, and that gave her the advantage. I didn't do shit. She killed herself. She's the person who doesn't belong anywhere. You lie. You lie. Why do you lie? You killed my sister. Everything happened very quickly. The two of them got caught up in a ridiculous rolling dance on the floor while I backed off a little further. I bumped into Jasmine. We should really do something. No, he has a gun. This isn't safe. Anytime now they'll... Naturally, because I feared this outcome so much, it happened. A gunshot came from the duo on the ground. My original plan was to fire a warning shot into the air just like he'd done, but I'd been too slow. Ah! It hurts. Why? The gun Ray hurled had fired during the altercation. He kept his finger on the trigger the whole time, and now he was reaping his mistake. Right after it happened, the two of them separated. As soon as he was free from her, Ray rapidly kicked with his legs until his back collided with the wall. He looked positively out of his mind. Self-defense. She leaped at me. You saw that, right? He pointed as I spoke, but we couldn't say anything to him. It was more accurate to say we didn't know what to say to begin with. Fuck. I wouldn't. God damn. Just want to fucking get out. You're all insane. I immediately went to G while he took his flask out and sipped as usual. Ray was useless, especially in this state of mind. Hey, Jazz, give me a hand, will you? She didn't seem bothered by my use of her other nickname, even though it partially exposed her names to two others. Her name to two others. Yeah. You probably figured there was no time to waste. Quickly she examined G's body. It was difficult to do while the twin was gesticulating. Please stop moving, will help you, okay? But it hurts. It doesn't stop. The fact that she was still conscious right now was a sign she was still doing okay, even with the bullet. It must have missed her vitals. I have to take her to the infirmary quickly. I'll wait there if the others aren't done, but we really can't afford to waste any time like this. She looks fine still. What do you suggest? No, it's just a matter of time. Look where the bullet pierced. I did notice it was somewhere in her chest, but I couldn't tell where. Tell exactly. She was howling in pain. A spot of red grew on her shirt. With the way she rolled on the ground, she stained everything redder and redder. Okay, the blood isn't stopping either. Ugh. Okay, this is gonna hurt, but I have no choice. Bear with it for a bit. Jasmine snagged one of the pens from my bag without even asking me. She didn't care which one it was. Finding the wound, she stuck the pen into it. Ah, what are you doing? It hurts. Stop. Taking out the bullet, then we'll make something to stop the flow. Not sure that's the best idea. Given, well, it would probably stop the bleeding, having the bullet in there. So until you've got something ready to stop it otherwise. With a disgusting sound, the bullet was snagged out by one end of the pen. That also sounds pretty impressive to do. I left it alone, instead deciding to take off my jacket, leaving me in my shirt. I took that off too. I needed to use something, but my uniform was all I had. However, the shirt was definitely a better loss than the jacket. If I lost that, it would be my blood on the ground after I contacted my employer. I'll use this then, quickly. I tore off the sleeves, tied them with each other and wrapped it around the twin's body. At least she was slim, so this was enough. I did a couple of knots so the whole thing would hold firmly, which left me shirtless. As I secured the cloth around her more firmly, G's blood also got onto my hands. Jesus fuck, it doesn't stop. I know, I think she just passed out. There's no time, I have to go right now or else we're going to be twinless. I'll go take the train, you explain to everyone else. Help Jasmine transport G, leaving behind my jacket for now. I'd put the torn shirt back on at least, though looking back at it, that had been a mistake. It quickly got stained with blood too. Quick, down the stairs, careful now. We were in the lobby shortly. Once again a train arrived from the other side of the platform. On the station. Finally I let go of G. This whole time I'd smelled this metallic horror oozing out of her wound. It was positively disgusting and almost dizzying. I knew we had iron in our blood, but this... Perhaps my senses were heightened as a result of the stressful situation. You'll be okay. Yeah. Go. I didn't need to be told twice. I left her surroundings to climb back up. the stairs very quickly. When I reached the top, I met up with the last duo, Marco and A. The two of them were observing the scene. Of note was my jacket on the ground, a pool of red blood not too far from it, E sitting quietly in the corner, and Ray hugging a gun against his chest while oscillating back and forth. And then there was me, blood on my hands, with a half-stained and half-torn shirt on, standing next to H's severed head. This would be difficult to explain. Good grief. By Euclid, what happened here? Explain yourself, young man. Marco looked at me strangely. Listen, it's not what it looks like. I mean, maybe a little, but I kind of need a better shirt first. I'll explain while I changed. I took off the shirt, looked at it, and sighing, figured I didn't really have a choice. I adjusted it back on so it didn't look like my sleeve was torn. If you want to know everything, just look at the head. Look inside of the head. What is he even saying? I think he's going a little crazy. I am not crazy. Whatever you are, let's take it from the beginning. I came back with E, and then I spent a while explaining to them just what had transpired while I put on my jacket. A part of my soul was horrified by the events, but another part was just as horrified by what could have happened if Jasmine hadn't been there. She was always reliable and always so calm. I didn't understand how she remained calm even when faced with someone who was on the verge of death. I related my arrival to the two of them, followed by Ray's return, Jasmine and the other twin coming in, and the fight and its outcome, and finally the ending of this terrible tale. I was thankful they didn't decide to believe any kind of falsehood before I finished talking. I finished my story a while later. Two of them contemplated my words. We were saying that, if I get this right, Ray came back with the young girl's head, proceeded to grow increasingly erratic before the other twin tackled him to the ground. I wonder if we can trust his word then. This all seems quite peculiar to me. Yeah, there was a fight and he ended up shooting G too, no? Ray didn't offer any comments on his side. He was positively distressed. It was up to me to play some kind of mediator because I understood that Ray might not have wanted to shoot. Well, I can't vouch for what happened with H once he snagged her from us, but I think what happened with G was at the very least an accident. You are covering for him? Well, I don't really want to, but I think we should consider that too. Very well, then. However, the fact remains, he has a dangerous weapon at his disposal. I kept quiet about the gun I had. If that fact came out, it would have been very bad news for me. Perhaps keeping it had been a mistake. In that moment, I thought to get rid of it, but how? Since you seem to be more acquainted with him, I will leave the burden of unarming him to you. Whoa, hold up. I'm not more acquainted with Ray than any of you. Just because we shared the little episode earlier doesn't mean anything. Even if we're the only remaining participants of that horrible event. Be that as it may, you have a better first-hand understanding of the situation than us. Please talk to him. Marco looked at me, worried. I was worried too. The old man did make some sort of sense. I gave up on my objection to his demand. Let us rest for a little, chat some to exchange further information, and then we should be off with E to a new station. Given the man's state, it is perhaps better for him to remain here for now. Ray didn't seem to hear us. It was a little selfish to make his choice without his input. On the other hand, the earlier we were out, the better it was, and our numbers had shrunken to an odd composition. Some would have to stay out this time, and Ray would most likely be it. Yeah, let's sit down. We did just come back from the station already. You don't mind? No, go ahead. I'll think about some things and talk to Ray, I guess. The old man smiled at me before he and Mark had split up for me to sit down in separate areas. Since they insisted, I figured I could go and speak to anyone I wanted. Provided I ended up talking to Ray too, at least. Let's go talk to him. I took a piece of a piece of paper and filled in E. And take a piece of E. Want a piece of that? I took a piece of paper and filled in E what had happened. The girl immediately gasped when she read what I wrote, putting her hand over her mouth. Oh no, poor C. I hardly knew them, but they didn't deserve this. Huh? C? I looked at the pens. I realised I mistook the G1 for the C1, since the G had been the one used to pull the bullet out of the girl. Quickly I had to rectify that. You should be careful of what you write. That's the only link I have with the outside world. Outside of my head, that is. Well, thanks for filling me in. Though I don't know what else I can say about it. I do hope she will be okay, but I feel rather powerless. I'm very confused by that response. Because either it's a really bad joke, or she actually thinks there's someone called C briefly there. Oh well, perhaps telling her about the events might have not been the best move I could do. Now she felt bad about it, but knowing was always better than not knowing. At least that's what I told myself, getting ready to speak with another person. So did you two find something special in the infirmary? No, I don't think we did. I spent almost all of it on that cheap-ass bed. What's with you and beds anyway? You keep harping about the bed I just bought, and now you find that hospital bed cheap, and... Hey, there's a difference. You still owe me for that bed. The hospital doesn't owe me anything but a bunch of medical bills. Did you meet someone, like a nurse or something? No, it's just a joke. But there was a nurse, the 9th person, or maybe someone in their 90s at least. I'm talking about old man A. I didn't exactly want to picture A as a nurse in my head. Thank you, Marco. He's probably a bit younger than 90, and he's not a nurse either. He did fit the bill when he nursed me to full health again. What's the matter, S? Imagining stuff you didn't want to see? You really have to stop that wild imagination of yours. When you say things, my imagination does doing something that's just natural. Don't say you don't mean. Don't say things you don't mean. I can read. I'm doing really well here. Okay. I think we're going to get to the next ending, assuming it's not too far off. And then stop, because, yeah, I'm struggling to read at this point. Oof, you can go for 3 hours. Yeah, okay, I figured you might have more interest in imagining A as a nurse than me on a bed, also naked, lying on my side. Oh, whatever, I'll go talk to someone else, you insufferable squeaker. I'll see you later. For some reason I felt like he hadn't been joking this time. I didn't want to push it either way. Both what he was implying and A in a nurse gown weren't things I was into. So what did you find in the infirmary? Anything special? No, nothing of the sort. I thankfully got there in time and your friend recuperated quickly. Either his metabolism is strong or there's something else at play here. That's good to know, at least. I don't really care about the specifics so long as he's doing fine. Sometimes the specifics can be very helpful. You may learn things you never thought about before. He wasn't wrong, but in this case I didn't particularly want to know about the inner workings of Marco's body, to be exact. So while we didn't find anything new, we did think it strange that there was an infirmary here. Do you think it was placed here for this very purpose? Who knows? I don't think Smiley is thinking. All these stations. I can understand the security room, otherwise it's as if they were set up this way to form some kind of place where you could coexist with others for a long time. All of that made me wonder if the metro had been repurposed into a bunker without anyone noticing. That seems a bit far-fetched. I took the metro yesterday and none of this was here. It's true that it would be difficult to put all this together without anyone's notice. I am, in the end, much in the dark as, you are, young man. We should get ready soon, so please finish your business now. We will have plenty of time to talk about this after we finish exploring the stations and find that 9th person. Okay, alright. We said our farewells for now and went to talk to someone else. And I went to talk to someone. Well, I approached Ray. I knew this might go very wrong, so I took it slowly. What? You got something to say? He wasn't looking at me. The poor man looked crushed, judging by his change in manners. Excuse me. Judging by his change in manners, I could only guess that he truly hadn't killed H. How do I say this? The others are unnerved because you have a gun, so you should get rid of it. I can deal with it if you want. No fucking way. Over my dead body. The man trembled a little while sipping from his drink. Listen, what you should do is just check the damn head. Yeah, I know it's ugly and you don't want to look at it. I didn't either. It's weird though. What do you mean weird? It's just a head. I internally cackled like a madman when I said those words, not out of insanity, but out of consideration of my choice of words. A head was never just a head. It was a severed head, a gross... fuck, I didn't want to think about it. Before you go, just check the neck, check through the neck, and leave me here. I'm not going to do shit till I get out. I removed myself from his presence with a sigh. Getting the gun from him would be impossible, so I at least went to do what he said. Hey, what are you doing? Ray said to look at the head, so I will. Can't get his gun? No. He looks useless enough right now. I can tell he's not going to be an issue anyway, so as long as nobody bothers him. Alright, if that's your diagnosis, have fun looking at the head. I'm going to get ready with the girl and old man A. He vacated my location. I took a look where I said I would, even if it felt a little disgusting to do so. It wasn't easy to see, since a lot of the insides were burnt, likely as a result of that laser beam from my collar. I didn't have a lot of biology classes, but I did remember some of what I was taught. The inside of the neck didn't match what I knew. For instance, there was this constant smell of metal. Blood did smell like metal, but not like this. The reason for the smell was there was actual metal inside. Small cables ran along the inside of the neck. Everything was painted and masked to look like actual organs with it. However, if you looked at it from up close, it was definitely a fake head. Huh? This isn't a real head. I took it in my hands and lifted it. It seemed heavy enough. I deposited it back down carefully. After taking a cursory look at everything else, I concluded the outside of the head was normal. It was just the inside. There was metal and weird fluids. The stuff on the inside looked like organs, felt like organs, but certainly wasn't made of organs. I decided to take my lunch with me instead of leaving it on the floor and walked away from it. So far, nothing makes any sort of sense. Did we find the person who didn't belong? This head looks made up. It doesn't look like a real head. What about the ninth person? Only silence answered my inquiry, as no one had anything to tell me that we hadn't shared already. I ruffled my head in aggravation. I didn't understand. How could anyone understand? We should probably get a move on. There's no telling how long it will take Jay, or if the twins can even be saved in the first place. Just as I thought, we should head out now. Who's the twins? The twin. Just as I thought, we should head out now. Unfortunately for them, we do have this dating game to beat, and we can't stay idle too long. I agreed. I wanted to get out more than ever, and there was no point in staying here when the ninth person might be eluding us even further. Leaving Ray behind, our trio walked? You can talk the walk, but can you walk the walk? Can you talk the talk? On the way out, A grabbed E's hand and she followed, understanding we were going to leave. Carefully, we went down the stairs. We were heading out in the same direction as before. What are the leftover stations on this side? Let me think. I believe there are the church and the theatre. After taking 2 stations, we will have unlocked and explored this entire side. Fitting since we're 2 teams of 2. The old man smiled as I understood why he chose this side. We waited for the train in silence, only broken by the screeching of the large compartments once they came in from the tunnel. Just as silently, we all held our tongues while stepping in. We didn't have much to say to each other that we didn't share before already, so the train soon set off without any spoken words. Just the same, the train travelled through several stations without any spoken words. It stopped a few times, and every time it went off again. After it left the gymnasium station, A motioned at us. We have to come to a conclusion. I believe we are in one of the rare moments where our groups are a little interchangeable. You see, as you have the bag with the pens, anyone could communicate with E. I knew what A was getting at. You'd group up with me if I gave the bag to my friend instead. However, I absolutely didn't want to give Marco this bag, and for obvious reasons. You're suggesting mixing the teams. I'm not against it, but... Do you have another way to proceed with this? If you don't want to, that's completely fine. We have all the options open, after all. I personally would be fine going with M again, if you desire to accompany me once more. Something was odd about his suggestion. I couldn't help but think that he was trying to split Marco from me again. Sure, he mentioned how all options were open, but his tone indicated that I was heavily encouraged to go with E at the very least. I'll think about it really quickly then. We still have a minute before we get to the church. Marco shrugged. He didn't seem to care. Perhaps I was being too paranoid after my witnessing of a dead person's head and none of this mattered. Whatever it is, I'll go at the next stop. This metro's making me antsy now. Maybe I should go with you then. If you are concerned about his well-being, do not worry. I will be taking good care of him. if we are paired up. Ho ho ho. He guffawed, in his usual fashion. Guffaw, and good word. A good, solid piece of word. And besides, I still have some topics to go over with him, as he'd been passed out for most of our previous exploration. I see. I'll take that in consideration. Either I went with E or with Marco. I had already decided that no matter what, teaming up with A was out of the question. This bag was far too important to leave to anyone else. Especially since it contained my gun, making it an option I couldn't pick. My decision came when we finally stopped at the station leading to the church. I mean, we've already done the church, so I'm going to go with E. After much reflection, or as much as I could give thought right now, I decided to stick to what the old man wanted. It didn't matter anyway, since if their group found the ninth person, Marco wouldn't leave without me. I guess I'll take the next station with E. You two can leave at this one. Take care of her, yeah? Of course I would. It wasn't some kind of creep I wasn't some kind of creep or maniac. Misread that as mechanic there for a moment. Yes, I won't take care of her because I am a mechanic. Apologies to mechanics everywhere. You do good work, probably. Don't know. I don't drive, so I don't have reason to go to any. I gave a half-hearted wave as they disembarked, but neither noticed me. The two of them disappeared beyond the doorframe. Then we were off again. I wondered what we'd find once we were at our station. I knew it was a theatre, but I didn't know what it meant. Every time I thought about those stations, I always wondered why? How? Once more, there was no theatre readily in the open through any of the stairs leading up from the station. That would be a very, very high-class station. You just have a theatre upstairs. I mean, I don't know, maybe there is. I'm wondering if there are like any station complexes with like cinemas in or something. I highly doubt there are any with theatres in the traditional sense of theatre. Theatre. Those stairs normally took us to the gates which we went through by using a metro pass. They didn't lead us to random rooms like these. What are you up to, Smiley? The rhetorical question received no answer. And finally we landed at the station the blind girl and I were to leave at. I prepared myself to use the pens. I didn't need them for this first part since the girl followed as soon as I grabbed her hand. Yeah, normally hand-holding could be a lot more embarrassing if you were like 16 years old. Obviously I was an adult. This didn't faze me. Did you throw it on the ground though? Oh, the train left before I even thought about making it to doorframe. That was fast. Normally they wait until we're inside. Maybe this is because it's the last station. Something seemed wrong with the two sides. I couldn't put my finger on what, but there was something that didn't quite match how I believed things should have been. Maybe it was just a bad feeling, or maybe it was just my imagination. It was very active sometimes. Always imagining worst case scenarios. But bad feelings equal there is something wrong. Finally, I made my way to the staircase. E in tow, it didn't take long for us to ascend to the theatre. The door closed behind us with a soft sliding noise. But I didn't pay attention to it. By now I knew how this place operated. None of this was surprising me. Getting up the stairs was harder than anticipated. E's blindness made it very difficult. Normally, blind people still have their ears to guide them. But someone who was blind and deaf, they didn't have anything but physical contact to guide them, right? Maybe changes in temperature too? Either way, once we arrived there, I took in the sight with my eyes, as I was not blind. Really. Those aren't creepy at all, especially the ones who don't have legs at all. Most of them seemingly missing some legs. Maybe that's part of the puzzle. If they let me do the puzzle this time. Either way, once we arrived there, I took in the sight with my eyes, as I was not blind. It definitely was a strange scene straight out of a horror manga. It was a miniature theatre. Its seats were full. I mean, I can see some missing, but okay. Tons and tons of robots lined up, immobile, facing towards the stage. Some of them had half fallen over. Many of them were amputees. I approached one and examined it closely. Eep! Watch out, I almost fell. I was about to excuse myself, but I refrained from it. Instead, I helped her to a seat on the front row before I went back to examine that robot. As usual, she wouldn't be much help. That's a bit rude. She was help in the gymnasium. I observed the tin can for a bit, but there was no movement, no recognition of its face. It was turned offline, if it even worked at all. Huh. Fake robot people, huh? Yes, it does look kind of disconcerting at first. I wrote onto a piece of paper to inform me of the situation. While she read it, I pushed onto one of the robots to test its weight. Maybe they actually were just empty shells. No, it was somewhat heavy. Tons of cogs and wiring were on the inside, probably. Theatre, correct? Somehow that doesn't sound too reassuring. Don't you have the same feeling too? I did. Everything in this room felt strange. My steps brought me close to the tables, set it up on the stage. It was the thing that stood out the most. On it was a box with a piece of paper. It had nothing written on it, but I could faintly make out some markings. Also, it wasn't completely flat up to the surface of the table. Something was under it. I flipped the sheet over, thinking nothing of it. Almost instantly, some stock applause noise came from the crowd. I recognised the sound as being stock since it was like one of those old sitcoms. I didn't know why they applauded, though. A screen at the back of the area lit up with a few numbers. At first, it had shown 10 o'clock, but soon it rolled... 10 minutes. But soon it rolled down to 9:59, 9:58, 9:57. It was a countdown. Huh? What does that mean? I quickly read the paper over while disregarding the object under it. I would get it momentarily. First I needed to understand what I had unwittingly triggered. 10 minutes to make a choice determining everyone's survival. Sacrifice me, or use me to leave. The former lets you both live, the latter will damn your partner. If time's up, all will die. All will die. What does that mean? Us both or everyone? Everyone? I set the paper aside. Questions found no answers. But I'm slightly confused. So, okay. So, I mean, the choice becomes either we get to leave by ourselves or we kill E. So, you know, looking at the table, I saw a key with a loop that loosely resembled the number 9. Is this the number 9 we're looking for? Wasn't it a person? How do I sacrifice it? Using it would just... it would... I took a glance over at E, still sitting quiet, unaware of the situation. This was what we'd searched for, but it would... damn her. No, it would kill her. I refused to mince words. Desperate for help, no matter the form it took, I shoved a hand into my jacket. There I found my cap. I hesitantly put it on. I hated wearing it, but maybe this would help me find a way out of this mess somehow. There must be some other way. I need to seek a way out. I think we're not actually on any kind of timer, because it doesn't indicate one. This is what I can use the key on. Doing it would... I refuse to think about it again. However, if I used this door, it would definitely happen. I just needed to steel my resolve if this was my selfish choice. There had to be another way out of this mess, wasn't there? 8 minutes remained. Each time I searched... oh, okay. Once it would near 0, I would probably have to pick something in a hurry unless I found how to leave. This box was strange. It was solid metal and it had a slot in the top. I could drop the key in there. This is what it meant by sacrifice then. If I drop it in there, it counts as saving everyone's lives. I swallowed. If I did this, I might be losing my only chance to escape from this place. The alternative wasn't amazing either. Was this choice meant to make us fight for it? If I had been in a team with someone who knew what was happening, surely things would be far different. Now the choice was up to me. 6 minutes remained. I closed my hands and fists, powerless. Still no signs of a real way out of this place. I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't tell her. I knew I should have asked for her input too, but this was too... It was too... I didn't know what, but it was too much something. Information could be like a curse, right? There exist information hazards, where simply knowing something would cause you harm. This was one of those. I wanted to ask her, but I really couldn't afford it. The pain of this choice wasn't hers to bear. That's right. It wasn't hers to bear. It also wasn't my pain to bear either. Neither of us nor anyone else in this place should have to handle this whole situation in the first place. I clenched my teeth in disgust. This place was horrible. Time was counting down still. I could see it. It was a choice between a living person and leaving this place. This place was horrible, but leaving it would be horrible too. What a dilemma. The more I thought about it though, the more it made sense not to use the key to leave. Where there was life, there was hope. All this thinking had taken its toll on the time I had left. Soon, there was almost none of it. I held my head in my hands, squeezing tightly. Damn it all. What could I have done? The more I tried to get back to the search, the more I decided that sacrificing E wasn't something I wanted to do. I didn't have a choice then. The time was ticking down. I had to pick now. The only option I believed was fine was this one. I couldn't abandon E. I could never do that. As much as I wanted to leave, as much as I wanted to escape this nightmare, she was stuck in it as much as I was. Not to mention sacrificing someone else for my own gain. That wouldn't win us this strange game. The victory conditions were absurd to begin with. But I didn't have the time to think about that yet. Right now I had to focus on the issue at hand. The timer was almost up. 10 minutes would soon have passed if I did nothing. And so I took the key with a clear conscience and pushed it down into the box. When it fell to the bottom, the hole closed and a small green light lit up on the back, signalling it had registered my choice. Applause rose from the crowd of robots again. Of course, they were the same stock sounds as earlier, and they didn't really come from actual people congratulating me on doing the right thing. Despite that, it felt like they were telling me I took the right path. But now, everything would be fine. The screen lit up on the back of the room behind the desk. One glance at it made it obvious. Smiley was supposed to show up at this part. Was he going to congratulate me? By valuing the life of someone else over your own, you won. You've managed to expose your selflessness, which is utterly commendable. I don't know why I'm suddenly doing this voice, but I am. Also, I still think this is either the Avatar or he's a space marine. I'm not quite sure which. You've managed to expose, which is utterly commendable, but you did not win the dating game. You may believe this to be unfair, but betrayal is part of life as well. It is not betrayal from me, however. You have betrayed yourself. Still, perhaps in a corner of your mind you believe this to be acceptable. Once again, it is utterly commendable, and yet the play is over. You may applaud, as you will now spend eternity within this cage of your own making. I do hope you have given your due farewells to your friends beforehand. I took E's hand in my own while he spoke until I realised he was done. In fact, he wasn't on the screen anymore. It had become pitch black once again. E was smiling, as though she'd understood the predicament I'd been in before. Whether that was the case, I couldn't know. Maybe she sensed my unease here. Some of Smiley's words were indeed weighing down on me, though. He spoke of a cage of my own making. I tested that theory. I walked towards the door in the back of the room behind the desk. He was contentedly following along, still without a care in the world. How could Smiley think I'd sacrifice her? My other hand closed upon the handle. I turned it, and just like I figured, it was locked. Now that I'd thrown the key away, there was no opening this. Still, I had to try. I ran my body into it, and gave up very quickly as this only made me dizzy. Like we'd confirmed earlier, at Ray's demand. Now also confirm even the doors leading outside from each station were impossible to bust through. Only one thing to do then. I'd leave the station and bring E back to the others so we could continue our escape attempts. Once again I led E with my hand. I navigated my way back to the staircase. I went down and... oh, this door didn't have any sort of doorknob. That's right, the only way to open it was with code. It didn't have any code though. I slowly I was slowly becoming more and more frustrated by the moment. Was there something I overlooked? I went back upstairs with E, taking a quick glance in the bathroom at the end of the hall before entering the theatre again. I did the right thing, I was sure of it, and not even Smiley could make me budge on that stance, yet the door was completely closed now. The lock was still there, and I had no way to undo it. The key was already used up, but there was only one door back, strangely enough. Normally each station covered the entire room overhead, right? So you could go down both sides, but this one only had one door. Only one accessible side. I had no idea what this meant exactly. Is there something wrong? I considered how I should tackle the problem with E. Clearly we weren't going anywhere anytime soon, but since this was the end of the line, I thought perhaps someone might stumble onto the station and help us from outside if I waited long enough, or maybe there was a secret passage. I wrote a message to E. I was going to search around a little further. E beamed at me, deciding to leave it in my hands as she was of no use otherwise. I'll stick around then. You've got some comfortable seats here. I left her in one of the theatre rows, in a spot empty of robots. At least she wouldn't have to sit around these strange, uncanny machines. I touched the walls. I believe maybe there was a secret passage somewhere that could lead down to the station on the other side, and yet my search was fruitless. There had to be something to do, somewhere to go. Search for something. I didn't know what that something was, but I figured it would be a better use of my time than waiting without doing anything. And yet there was nothing. Nothing. That was right. Nothing. I gained nothing from this, and I lost nothing. And nothing happened. It was, in essence, not even my choice. When I was given the key to leaving this place, it wasn't just a key to leave the entire subway train system. It was a key to leave this very station too. Perhaps there was no way out. I still had to seek a way out, though. I couldn't stand doing nothing. I sort of knew what happened to people who were in total isolation. They went completely insane after a while, already having hallucinations after a few days at best. Inaction could just, at any moment, rob me of my sanity. If I was alone, it would be worse, but I wasn't alone, was I? I took a glance back at E. She was here. Since there was nothing I could do in this room, perhaps she could be my anchor? The part of me thought I shouldn't become too attached, though. Before that thought was made manifest, I already began walking towards her. It was a silly notion anyway. If I left her alone, she'd go crazy, especially due to her circumstances. I wrote a message to E after sitting down with her. I told her every event that had happened here. She looked a little concerned, and she had every right to be. I really wonder, how did we even end up in here? It doesn't matter, I guess. As long as we're still alive. I agreed with her. I was still alive, and I just had to think. But her hand in mine made it increasingly hard to do so. Something flashed within my head. This game was called the dating game, right? So perhaps I should treat this as a date? There was no movie playing in the theatre, but she and I could do something else to divert ourselves. I wrote it on another paper. Strangely enough, she looked very happy. You know, even though we're stuck here, I think that's fine for me. Do you agree? I agreed. I readied my papers so I could communicate with her. In the next minutes, we spent a while going back and forth to plan out some sort of game we could play. We enjoyed that for a while. The both of us had accepted our fate. We were at the mercy of the others finding this place anyway. We waited for dozens of minutes. Half an hour went by. A whole hour passed us. 2 hours eventually elapsed. By the time the 5-hour mark came by, I wasn't even thinking about escaping anymore, and she and I were both enjoying each other's company. No, nothing gross, just wholesome pastime. We played some games. Hunger? There was none. I wasn't even thirsty. We discussed things of all kinds. Escape? That didn't matter. I didn't even care. Perhaps this was all that was important. If my friends couldn't find me, no one came to help. If nothing else happened, then we would help each other remain sane. This room was a world of our own making. You may think it to be only make-believe, but for us it was real. After a longer time had passed, I started to believe this was really all I needed. Everything was right as it should have been. He and I were both happy, together like this. The disabilities weren't even on my mind anymore. Escaping wasn't on my mind anymore. Smiley wasn't on my mind anymore. Everything was right as it should have been. It was Jasmine again. Marco, Ray, A, the twins? I didn't really think about them. There was only E. Everything was right as it should have been. Darkness would be coming for me soon, but I didn't care. Everything was right as it should have been. Deep inside, a malignant darkness was growing. As if I remembered I should have been doing something, yet still wasn't doing it. It was eating at the back of my head, like an indescribable horror, festering among those happy thoughts. And yet I laughed with E as we both remained trapped together. As the darkness came, I screamed internally, quietly, eternally. Well, well. Another end. So that's interesting. Oh, there's another route divergence there. And then that's presumably if we choose to leave. Okay. Interesting. Oh, that's when we go with Marco, isn't it? So, yeah, okay. Well, I think that's enough for today. We've been going, what, 3.5 hours? So, yeah. Thank you very much for watching. My schedule for the week is up on Twitter if you want to catch anything else. And there is an extra video I'll be dropping maybe tomorrow that isn't on the schedule at the moment, but we'll see how I feel about that. As it is, yeah, we made some good progress. We got a few different endings. So we'll see where we go to next time. But for now, goodbye.